Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook. Just joined Rocks. Fusion Saitama template. Chapter 41. In an unknown sea, the Rocks is slowly advancing on the sea. On the deck, Whitebeard leaned against the stern, looking out into the distance. After knowing that he gave Shinzi a wrong message, Whitebeard felt very guilty. After finally giving his brother a guiding suggestion, he didn't expect it to be an oolong, which made him feel very sorry for Shinzi. Looking into the distance, he couldn't help feeling a little melancholy. Ha. Edward, hasn't Shinzi come back yet? With a cigar in his mouth, Golden Lion walked leisurely to Whitebeard's side with uncontrollable excitement on his face. When he learned that Shinzi was looking for a woman, but he went to a barren area, Golden Lion was in a great mood, and the frustration of being defeated by Shinzi before was swept away. Like Whitebeard, Golden Lion would come to the deck to watch from time to time during Shinzi's absence. Of course, the purpose was not to warmly welcome him, but to see Shinzi's disheveled appearance when he came back, so as to make a wave of ridicule and see what it would be like if he was embarrassed and had nothing to say. Every time he thinks of the scene when Shinzi came back, rowing a small boat, not accomplishing anything, with a sad face, Golden Lion can't help but smile from ear to ear. Golden Lion's idea is very simple. Since he can't regain his position temporarily in terms of strength, it is also very interesting to find Shinzi uncomfortable in these trivial matters. Hey, I don't know what happened to Shinzi and the others there. It stands to reason that if you didn't see any beauties over there, you would go straight home. Why haven't you seen them come back for so long? Whitebeard said a little worriedly, for Shinzi and the others went out this time and hadn't returned for such a long time. Whitebeard always felt that something happened. Ha. Would it be possible to get lost at sea? Maybe Shinzi and Kaido, in a corner, are having fun with the animals there. When Golden Lion said this, he even matched it with a pervert expression, so everyone can know what is going on in his mind at this moment. Roll, Golden Lion, it seems that Shinzi hit you too lightly last time. I'll beat you up again when he comes back. Regarding the Golden Lion's words, Whitebeard gave him a blank look, and also said sarcastically. Hearing Whitebeard talk about this matter, Golden Lion was still happy just now, but suddenly stagnated. He is the last person on the boat to hear this matter mentioned, and whoever wants to say it in front of him, he will take good care of that person. At this moment, the anger on Golden Lion's face rose. HMPH. If you have the ability to talk and talk, let's make some gestures. If you can't beat Shinzi, I'm afraid you won't succeed. Say it. Golden Lion was about to pull out the sakura-ten and deadwood from his waist. But suddenly, a word Whitebeard said made him drop his hands. Look over there. There's a ship approaching. It's the Celestial Dragons. Whitebeard exclaimed, his face full of seriousness. Following the sound, I saw a luxury cruise ship with extremely luxurious decoration at the right rear of the Rocks, approaching the Rocks at a very fast speed. The luxury of the ship and its huge hull make it difficult to see the details of the ship from a distance, but you can still recognize it as a luxury cruise ship of Celestial Dragons at a glance. After all, on this sea, except for these world nobles, no one dares to sail such a luxurious boat so arrogantly. Quickly, go inform the crew and enter the state of readiness. As soon as Whitebeard's voice fell, Golden Lion immediately started to act. At this time, it was not the time to vent his anger. Not for a while. There was a rustling sound on the ship, and the deck was full of crew members, including the captains, crew members, and Captain Rocks. After hearing the news of the Celestial Dragon's raid, they immediately put down what they were doing and rushed over. Standing on the deck, Rocks gazed into the distance. At this moment, he didn't have the slightest fear on his face, but instead had a grinning face, sneering again and again. Generally speaking, Celestial Dragons will choose to stay away when encountering Rocks' pirate ships. After all, when Rocks encounters Celestial Dragons, they will kill one at a time. The active attack of the Celestial Dragons this time can only explain one problem, that is, their current ship must be equipped with the powerful combat power of the naval headquarters, and they are confident enough to defeat the Rocks pirates. However, even thinking of this point, Rock's eyes were full of disdain. He wanted to see what kind of combat power Marine had deployed this time, and whether he was qualified enough to use his full strength. Looking at the approaching luxury cruise ship in the distance, Rocks waved to the people around him, and a pirate immediately handed over a telescope with interest. Rocks' eyelids were close to the lens of the telescope, and he saw the huge cruise ship from the circular field of view. Under the sun, the hull was shining brightly and extravagantly. However, on the deck, he didn't see a marine figure, and he searched the ship for a while, but he didn't see a single person. Rocks couldn't help but look weird. Then, he raised his gaze upwards, his face froze suddenly, as if he had seen something unbelievable. I saw two people sitting on the top of the flagpole with the dragon's hoof logo printed on it. Shinzi, Kaido. Hearing the exclamation of Captain Rocks, the expressions of the crew present were full of doubts. Shinzi, Kaido. A question arose in every crew member's heart at the same time. What did Captain Rocks see on the luxury cruise ship? Why did you suddenly think of these two names? Whitebeard was stunned for a moment, and when he heard Rocks call Shinzi's name, he thought of a possibility, and quickly took the binoculars on a crew member, and looked into the distance. Why are Shinzi and Kaido on the Celestial Dragon's boat? Hearing this, everyone's faces froze. What the hell? Kaido and Shinzi on board. People rubbed their eyes involuntarily, trying hard to see everything on the boat. And when the cruise ship came to a distance sufficient for the naked eye to see the whole picture, everyone's expression suddenly changed. Really? At this time, on the top of the flagpole, Shinzi was standing there, waving at them. There were no celestial dragons beside him, not even marine. I'm lost. What's the situation? Why are Shinzi and Kaido on the celestial dragon's boat? I remember when they went out, they took a small wooden boat. Why did it turn into a cruise ship of celestial dragons when they came back? Could it be that during this time, Shinzi robbed the celestial dragons? It's very possible, otherwise, it won't make any sense. Awesome, Captain Shinzi is so awesome. Quote quote. When all the pirates saw Shinzi appearing on the cruise ship, they were all shocked. This scene seemed so discordant to them. There were actually two pirates on board the celestial dragon's ship. The only thing that can explain this phenomenon is that Shinzi robbed the celestial dragons. Oh, I didn't expect everyone to welcome me so much. I came back this time, and the whole ship came out to greet me. What an honor. During the time the crew was stunned, the luxury cruise liner had docked alongside the suspended rocks. Shinzi jumped down from the flagpole and said to everyone with a smile on his face. Kaido next to him also jumped down at this time. Under the shocked eyes of everyone, Shinzi walked to the deck of the Rocks and stood in front of Rocks. Where did your boat come from? Rocks opened his mouth slowly, asking each crew member the question in their hearts. Ship of the Celestial Dragons. When I came back, I happened to meet celestial dragons driving this luxury cruise ship to patrol the sea. So, we went up and beat them up and snatched the boat. Shinzi smiled and told what happened, as if he was talking about a very ordinary thing. And what about the celestial dragons on board? Rock's eyes lit up, and he continued to ask. That stupid pig. I threw it into the sea to feed the fish. By the way, there are 3 CP0 personnel who are feeding the fish with him. Shinzi said slowly, recalling the ending of those 4 people, the corners of his mouth slightly raised. Hearing this, the pirates next to him gasped. Shinzi not only robbed Celestial Dragon's ship, but also killed Celestial Dragons. How many people threatened to kill Celestial Dragons, but when they actually met, they had completely different attitudes and they couldn't hide. But the matter of killing Celestial Dragons came out of Shinzi's mouth, just like eating and drinking. Jia ha 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 ha. Shinzi, you did a great job. Celestial Dragons are, well done. Rocks couldn't help laughing wildly when he heard that Shinzi slaughtered the Celestial Dragons. The people he hates the most are those Celestial Dragons who call themselves the nobles of the world. Rocks wants to dominate the world, openly opposes the world government, and also thinks that they can kill those Celestial Dragons by then. Gu la la la. Shinzi, I didn't expect you to give us such a big surprise when you came back this trip. At this time, Whitebeard swept away his previous worries, gave Shinzi a thumbs up, walked to Shinzi, and wanted to say something more. Seeing this, he waved his hand. Shinzi knew what he was going to say by looking at his expression. They're all brothers, I understand. If you hadn't shown the way this time, I wouldn't have met the Celestial Dragons. Shinzi hammered the position of his heart with his hand, and said. Hearing this, Whitebeard froze for a moment, then laughed out loud. Gu la la la. Patting Chin-zi on the shoulder, he knew that he didn't need to explain any more. Immediately, he changed the topic, looked at the golden lion beside him, whose face was already stiff at this time, and said loudly. Gu la la la. Golden lion, your expression doesn't look very good. Did something disappoint you? Hearing this, Golden Lion wanted to scold his mother. Oh shit, why call me at this time? This Whitebeard is definitely on purpose. Golden Lion originally wanted to mock Chin-zi, but when he heard what Captain Rox said earlier, he felt something was wrong. When he was confirmed by Chin-zi, he knew that he had become a clown again this time, and everyone came back directly in the Celestial Dragon's boat. This is still mocking fart. No, I've had a bit of a stomachache recently, ouch. It's happening again, I'm going back first. Golden Lion covered his stomach with his hands, with a painful expression on his face. After saying that, he was about to turn around and leave, but just as he was moving, Chin-zi stopped him. Golden Lion, don't rush away. I still have something good to show everyone. Can there be something nice? Golden Lion stopped his steps, looked at Chin-zi, and said a little depressed. Gold in the sky. Do you think it's good enough? The moment Chin-zi said the gold in the sky, the audience was silent, and all eyes were on Chin-zi, including the Golden Lion who was stopped. Celestial dragons. Gold in the sky. Only at this time did everyone think of this question. Chin-zi's beheading of the celestial dragons had been attracting attention before, so they didn't notice it. How can there be no gold in the sky on a luxury cruise ship with celestial dragons? Gold in the sky. Quick, take me to see it. Before Golden Lion could speak, the old money fan John answered first. The eyes are full of greed, as if a pervert saw a girl who took off her clothes. Chin-zi felt the eyes of everyone, turned his head slightly, and said loudly towards the position of the luxury cruise ship. Chorabaf, don't take the helm anymore, come here. Under people's puzzled eyes, after half a sound, a Titan male came out of the hull. Her hair covered her eyes, her steps were slightly awkward, and she walked slowly to Chin-zi's side. Chin-zi pointed at Chow Libafu, and said slowly, let me introduce to you first, this is a new team member I have recruited, and his name is Chow Libafu. Everyone glanced at him, looked him up and down, and immediately lost interest. It's not that there are no Titans on the Rox ship. What's so strange? Compared to the gold in the sky, it is the most concerned. Ouch, Chin-zi, we got it, let's go see the gold in the sky first. Seeing that Chin-zi actually introduced the team members, John jumped up anxiously, now who cares what team members you recruit? Hearing this, Chin-zi raised his eyebrows and thought to himself. Why, I'm really impatient, if I don't take them there again, Chin-zi thinks that these pirates will rush over directly. Then let's go. Ever since, led by Chin-zi, everyone came to the place where the gold from the sky was placed. The first time they saw the gold in the sky, everyone was stunned by the scene in front of them. The expressions on the faces of the captains were exactly the same as Chin-zi's at that time, and some pirates' faces were full of greed. Look. Even Rox, whose eyelids were twitching at this moment, was startled by the gold in the sky in front of him. As expected of gold in the sky. How much is this worth? I've never seen so many treasures in my life, it's like a dream. It has always been said that the gold in the sky is a huge fortune. I have imagined how big it would be countless times. I didn't expect that when I saw it with my own eyes, my imagination was still limited by poverty. Those stupid pigs of celestial dragons don't do anything, how can they have so much treasure? Yeah, celestial dragons is all B. Captain Chin-zi killed celestial dragons and won the gold in the sky. He is really a role model for us pirates. Quote. A group of pirates couldn't help exclaiming when they saw the treasures shining with various lights in front of them. Some pirates who have accumulated a lot of wealth and think they are rich feel ashamed. Compared with this, their little money is just a dime on Junyu. And some pirates thought that the money belonged to the celestial dragons, and they couldn't help scolding. It was a kind of jealousy with anger. They were jealous why celestial dragons could enjoy so much wealth when they were born, but they themselves had to live in fighting in the sea. Among these people, there were a few pirates who were dazzled by greed and wanted to steal some treasures from the gold in the sky when there were many people, but Kaido, who had been on guard for a long time, smashed his head with a stick. Seeing this scene, the watching pirates slowly calmed down. Vice Captain, you did a great job. Shinzi smiled slightly and praised him. Shinzi hates pirates who can't even keep their senses in front of treasures, because such people will do anything for the treasures. When speaking, Shinzi directly called Kaido the vice captain. What, deputy captain? Whitebeard was shocked when he heard Shinzi's words, and asked involuntarily. Others were also shocked when they heard Shinzi address Kaido. Everyone on the ship knew that Kaido was going to be the captain. Unexpectedly, he would join Shinzi's team and become the vice captain. Kaido, tell yourself. Shinzi didn't explain, but threw the topic to Kaido. The meaning was obvious. Shinzi wanted Kaido to speak out in front of everyone. Kaido also understood Shinzi's meaning. Without hesitation, he spoke immediately. I, Kaido, have officially joined the Shinzi team and become the vice captain. Hearing Kaido's confession, everyone was taken aback for a moment, and then laughed. Ha ha ha, Kaido, I didn't expect you to become someone else's team member. It seems that wicked people still need to be tortured by wicked people. Shinzi, you are so awesome, even Kaido, an arrogant kid, can be included in the team. Last time I persuaded him for several days and refused to agree. I really don't know. What method did you use? Akoku and Silver Axe said at this time that they really admired Shinzi, not only killed the celestial dragons, won the heavenly gold, but also took Kaido. Everything in it is difficult for them to do. Gu la la la. Shinzi, I didn't expect you to do it. It really impressed me again. Whitebeard remembered what Shinzi had said to him before, that he wanted to include Kaido in the team, but he didn't expect to do it in a few days, and couldn't help admiring. Ha ha ha, good luck. Shinzi smiled and replied. At this moment, Shinzi felt that someone was watching him all the time. Although other pirates were also looking at him, this gaze gave people a completely different feeling. Shinzi frowned, and looked over to where he was looking. Suddenly, my body felt cold. I rely on Charlotte Linlin. Unexpectedly, she hadn't given up yet. Shinzi couldn't help but smiled wryly. Sure enough, a man who is too good has troubles. Although a little uncomfortable, Shinzi could only endure in silence, and had to find a way to solve this matter, otherwise it would be too uncomfortable to continue like this. With a roll of his eyes, Shinzi suddenly thought of a way. The heavenly gold on the Celestial Dragon's luxury cruise ship was divided into 4 at the proposal of Rocks. Originally, Shinzi thought that these treasures were discovered by himself, so they should all belong to him. But I didn't expect that the rule of the Rocks pirates is, when a huge treasure is found, every crew member can get some treasure from it. Regarding this, Shinzi couldn't help cursing in his heart. If he had known this was the case, Shinzi would have just sailed away. And looking at Rock's malicious smile, Shinzi had every reason to suspect that this rule was temporarily set by the captain after seeing the gold in the sky. The distribution of the 4 heavenly gold is as follows. Shinzi gets 60% of it, Rocks gets 20%, the other captains get 20%, and the rest of the crew get 10%. Even if it is 10%, because the amount of gold in the sky is there, it is not a small fortune to distribute it to each crew member. Those pirates who got the treasure were all cheering and ecstatic. So under the cheers of all the pirates, Shinzi seemed to become a pirate hero for a while, and his popularity in the Rocks pirate group was extremely high. Walking out of the luxury cruise ship, Golden Lion couldn't restrain the joy on his face. He didn't expect to get Shinzi's favor this time. For this, Golden Lion didn't have the slightest bit of embarrassment. He couldn't help but wish for Shinzi to take advantage of him. Moreover, the wealth distributed from the gold in the sky is enough for him to work hard for several years. Just as he was about to return to his room with the treasure in his arms, the figure of Shinzi suddenly stood in front of him. Immediately, Golden Lion was startled, thinking that Shinzi had come to ask him to take the treasure back, but without even thinking about it, he was about to run to his room with the treasure in his arms. But Shinzi's figure was like a ghost. No matter which direction Golden Lion went, it stood in front of him like a mountain. Golden Lion, why did you see me in such a panic? Why don't you just lose me once? Don't worry, I won't take back your treasure. Shinzi put his hands on Golden Lion's body, and said slowly. Seeing the Golden Lion clinging tightly to the heavenly gold that he was allotted, Shinzi immediately understood what he was hiding. What? I'm going to panic. Are you kidding me? Isn't it just a fluke to beat me once? There is nothing to show off. I will get my place back sooner or later. When Golden Lion heard that Shinzi would not take back his treasure, he immediately said angrily as if he had changed himself. Ah, yes, yes, yes. Don't panic, don't panic. I came here this time because I have something to tell you. After you lost me last time, I haven't mentioned that condition to you yet. Shinzi had something to ask him at this time, so he didn't want to provoke him with words, so he followed his words. Shinzi had never mentioned the terms of the bet to Golden Lion before, but this time he suddenly thought of it, so he came to find him. Hey, tell me, what are the conditions? When Golden Lion heard this, his face froze immediately, knowing that he couldn't hide, he sighed, and asked. I don't want any of your treasure or anything. You just have to help me and keep Charlotte Linlin from bothering me. Shinzi threw a look that you understand to Golden Lion, and stated his condition. Hearing this, Golden Lion was taken aback. When he heard the previous sentence, he was still secretly happy. When he heard the latter sentence, he felt bad all over. I don't want to mess with that crazy woman. You should find someone else. Charlotte Linlin, in the Rocks Pirates, who doesn't know that she will go into a state of rage if she disagrees, and it's too late for people to avoid her. Although it is said that Golden Lion is not afraid of her, and can suppress her even if he goes berserk, it must be a thankless task. That's it. Hearing this, Shinzi's tone suddenly turned cold, his eyes lowered, his eyes fixed on Golden Lion, and he spoke slowly. I don't like to force others. Since you don't want to, then I won't force it either. Now change the terms, give me your Sakura 10 and Deadwood. Shinzi's voice seemed to come from an ice cellar. Hearing Golden Lion's ears, he couldn't help but tremble. Golden Lion understood that Shinzi wanted to make himself a choice between the two, and if he rejected both options, Shinzi would have to use force in the next step. Golden Lion gave a wry smile, and his entire face turned into a bitter gourd shape. Sin. Why did he want to compete with Shinzi in the first place? Now he regrets it more and more. Hey, I'd better choose Charlotte Linlin. Golden Lion didn't hesitate anymore. It was impossible for him to give up those two famous knives, so when Shinzi said that, his choice had actually been made. It's Luo. That's right. Isn't it just to block someone? For you, a great swordsman and a world-class peak powerhouse, that's not a matter of sprinkling water. Shinzi patted Golden Lion and said with a smile. Hearing the words, Golden Lion was shocked in his heart, his face changed really quickly, and he scolded Shinzi tens of thousands of times in his heart. But these are not important to Shinzi. As long as the Golden Lion agrees, then his goal will be achieved. Just as he was about to leave, Shinzi looked at Charlotte Linlin who had been walking towards him in the distance. The corners of Shinzi's mouth raised slightly, and he spoke slowly. Golden Lion, here comes your business. With the help of Chow Libafu, 60% of the gold in the sky filled Shinzi's room, even the bed, and it was not enough to pretend. As a result, Shinzi had to apply to Rocks for a bigger house. However, from Rocks, Shinzi learned that, except for his own room, the largest room on the Rocks was under the name of Akoku, because the layout of the room at that time was arranged according to the time when the pirates came to Rocks. In other words, whoever comes early and occupies the room first will own that room. Of course, this rule only applies to the captains. If the crew members want to live in a good room, it depends on their own strength. After all, even if a crew member lives in a better room, he will still be kicked out when a stronger person occupies it. You know, Rocks and the captains hardly care about the fights between the crew. But this room is not difficult for Shinzi. There is a saying that money can turn ghosts around. Under Shinzi's ability to make money, Akoku gave up that room very enthusiastically. By the way, Shinzi also asked Chow Libafu for a room next door. Akoku's room is much more spacious than the previous one. At least Shinzi can have a bed to sleep after stacking up the treasures. Shinzi sat on the edge of the bed and looked at Chow Libafu who was standing aside. His long hair covered his face, so he couldn't see what he looked like at all. Choli Buff, you should cut your hair too. Next time I see you, I hope you don't have such long hair. The room next to it will be your residence from now on. Go back and rest. Shinzi took out a key and threw it to Chow Libafu. After he left, Shinzi stretched and lay up on the bed. Thinking that today's exercise had not been completed, Chinzi shook his head, loosened his muscles and bones, and then got up and started training. The night sky outside the window is deep, the silver moon is bright and clear, and strands of silver moonlight are sprinkled. After Chinzi closed the windows and the door, he was ready to rest, took off his outer clothes, and went to bed. Just when Chinzi was about to fall asleep, boom boom boom. A series of knocks on the door pulled Chinzi back from the edge of sleep. This Whitebeard, what's the matter with me so late? Chinzi frowned, thinking to himself. Getting up from the bed, Chinzi simply put on some clothes and opened the door. At this time, a pirate was standing outside the door. After seeing him, Chinzi frowned even deeper, because he didn't know the person in front of him very well. Chinzi looked at his face carefully. He was tall and thick, with a beard. He looked familiar, but he couldn't name him. Captain Chinzi. I'm a member of John's team. When the bearded man saw Chinzi, he quickly introduced himself. Oh, come in. Chinzi closed the door, sat on the edge of the bed, looked at him and said. What, did Akoku send you here for something? No, I came here voluntarily. The bearded man had a smile on his face, and said in a low tone. You came here by yourself. Then you have something to do. Tell me. Chinzi was a little surprised, glanced at him lightly and said. What would happen if a player from another team came to find him? Chinzi was also a little curious. Captain Chinzi, you have accepted Kaido and Chowli buff. Are you short of manpower recently? You are recruiting players. Actually, when you came to the Rocks Pirates, I always wanted to join your team. I saw that you were recruiting players today, so I came here to ask if I can join your team. The bearded man said slowly, with a respectful tone and a very sincere attitude. Hearing this, Chinzi's face changed. He really didn't expect this to happen. He was startled, and suddenly thought that this could not be sent by Akoku to deliberately play me. But looking at his expression, it doesn't look like a fake. It seems that he really wants to join his team. However, just when Chinzi wanted to answer, boom boom boom. There was another knock on the door. Chinzi left the bed, walked over and opened the door to have a look. A tall, thin pirate stood outside the door. Captain Chinzi, I am a member of John's team. I have something to do with you. Chinzi led him in, closed the door, and sat back on the bed. Yo, you're here too. Yo, what a coincidence. The two seemed to know each other, and they were a little surprised when they saw each other. Embarrassed and yet polite, he smiled and fell silent. Then they turned their attention to Chinzi. Captain Chinzi, you were recruiting players recently. Can you see me? My strength is among the Rocks Pirates, and I can rank among them all. The thin and tall pirate said slowly. While asking Chinzi, he also revealed his own strength. Seeing this scene, Chinzi understood that they really didn't come to play with him, they really wanted to join his team. Boom boom boom. There was another knock on the door. Chinzi scratched his head. This time he didn't go to open the door by himself, and made a gesture with his eyes. Among them, the bearded man, who was obviously more knowledgeable, immediately went to open the door. Hey, why are you in Captain Chinzi's room? Where is Captain Chinzi? The pirate standing outside the door was obviously surprised when he saw the beard, and asked. It's inside. Then, the third pirate came to Chinzi, and was shocked again after seeing the tall and thin pirate. But he didn't say anything. He looked at Chinzi and was about to speak. Wait, you don't want to join my team, do you? Which team do you belong to? Chinzi interrupted him and asked straight to the point. Yes, I'm from the Golden Lion team. The third pirate was obviously taken aback when he heard the words. He didn't expect Chinzi to ask him that, but when he saw the eyes of the other two pirates, he understood. I rely on it. After getting an affirmative answer, Chinzi patted himself on the head. His face couldn't tell whether he was happy or sad. It was extremely complicated anyway. He didn't expect that there would be so many people all of a sudden, and they suddenly wanted to join his team. Could it be that he was attracted by his charm? But I've never seen it so positive before. Oh shit. Wouldn't it be because of his own treasure? Thinking of this, Chinzi suddenly felt bad. He would never allow such a person to join his team. I'm sorry everyone, thank you for your compliments. If there is a team, I won't consider it for the time being. Chinzi said with a smile, politely rejecting the pirate's request. Hey, That's such a pity. My admiration for Captain Shinzi comes from the bottom of my heart. Yes, yes, who is not? Captain Shinzi is too charming. That's right, Captain Shinzi is awesome, he is the one who does great things. Quote quote. After the three of them heard Shinzi's words, they all looked regretful, and they started blowing Shinzi's rainbow farts. Speaking of the latter, even Shinzi, a thick-skinned person, couldn't listen anymore. In the end, they saw that Shinzi was still indifferent and had no intention of keeping them. Knowing that it was impossible, they left one by one. But before they left, each of them said something similar to Shinzi. Captain Shinzi, don't tell the captain that I was looking for you secretly. Watching them leave, Shinzi shook his head. In the Rocks Pirates, there are really too many rebels. After closing the door, Shinzi lay back on the bed. Boom boom boom. There was another knock on the door. Shinzi is doomed to sleepless night. The next day, Shinzi rubbed his sleepy eyes and got up from the bed. Opening the door, the glare of the light made most of Shinzi's drowsiness disappear at once, and it was already noon. Take off a notice pasted on the door, temporarily not accepting team members. Do not disturb. Shinzi rubbed it and threw it out. Last night, Shinzi kept getting knocked on the door by pirates. He was really annoyed. In the end, he had no choice but to write a note and stick it on the door frame. Then he fell asleep for a while. Outside the door, Chow Libafu was standing outside at this time, apparently waiting for Shinzi. The long hair on his head disappeared. Seeing his appearance, Shinzi nodded. Although it was extremely uncoordinated that Shinzi manipulated his hair in a mirror, it was much more pleasing to the eye than before. Suddenly, Shinzi seemed to remember something, and reached out to touch his head. Fine, fine, it's fairly dense. Immediately, he walked in front of Jolie Buff, who was standing there like a statue. You don't have to wait for me, let alone follow me all the time, to do your own thing. Obviously, he has not yet come out of the Celestial Dragon's handling mode. Compared with his team status, he is more inclined to regard Shinzi as his master, which makes Shinzi feel a little uncomfortable. Hearing this, Chow Libafu was stunned for a while before he uttered a few words. Okay, Captain, quote quote, Gu la la la. Shinzi, why did you get up so late today? This is not like you who got up early to exercise. Whitebeard saw Shinzi come out of the room at this time, walked over and said with a smile. Hey, don't mention it, I didn't sleep well last night. Shinzi sighed and said helplessly. Is there a group of pirates who came to you and want to join the team? Whitebeard moved closer to Shinzi's ear, and said in a low voice, with a meaningful expression on his face. In the morning, Whitebeard actually came to look for Shinzi. He wanted to go in and call him, but when he saw the note on the door, Whitebeard understood. Know it and ask. Shinzi gave Whitebeard a look, and said with a smile. Gu la la la. You are a man of the hour in the Rocks Pirates, but a group of people below are targeting you. There are some people with malicious intentions among them, you have to be careful in the future. Now that Shinzi is the richest person in the Rocks Pirates, everyone knows it. Some people admire Shinzi, but there are also people who are jealous. After all, the tree attracts wind, so Whitebeard kindly reminded. The King of Hades is easy to block, but the little devil is difficult to deal with. I understand this truth. Shinzi said slowly, he didn't take those pirates too seriously. Yan Wang, brat, which pirate is this? I don't seem to have heard of it. Whitebeard frowned. Ah, the person in a little story in my hometown. Shinzi said resentfully. Whitebeard nodded upon hearing this, but did not continue to ask. Then, the two walked towards the restaurant. In the restaurant, a roar sounded. Loaf, fooling me with these things again. Whitebeard, go check the back kitchen, that guy must be stealing it. Shinzi was furious, took a bite of the food in front of him, and cursed. Eating things made from fruits can only keep you full, and the taste is equivalent to nothing. The last time I ate a big meal, I ate these foods, but I was really hungry at the time, so I didn't care much. But this time it's still this stuff. Shinzi can't take it anymore. If he can't even eat well, he'll be a badass pirate. The two stood up and hurried to the back kitchen. As soon as they reached the aisle, Shinzi saw a cloud and a small sun floating on the ceiling. They are homies, created by Charlotte Linlin with her ability, and her right-hand man, Sun Prometheus and Thundercloud Zeus. That woman is here too. Qinzi cursed secretly. When Qinzi saw them, they also saw Qinzi. They were shocked and turned around to run away. But Qinzi was faster than them. After an afterimage, he pressed Prometheus with his left hand and Zeus with his right hand. Charlotte, Linlin and Loaves are stealing inside. Are you guarding him? Yes, it is. The two homies' voices nodded in horror. Boom. Whitebeard kicked open the door and walked in. He saw Charlotte Linlin eating cake and dessert. The baguette next to him was holding a chicken leg, and his mouth was full of oil. There was a pile of food in front of them. Seeing this scene, Qinzi cursed directly. I said, why is there not enough food on the boat? You always use fruits as garbage to fool us. So you are stealing food here. Tell me, how do you two plan to deal with this matter? Qinzi, Whitebeard, the two were taken aback. As the head chef of the Rocks, it is extremely disgraceful for Longbread to eat without telling everyone. If it is exposed, the people on the ship will have to skin him. And Charlotte Linlin is also not much better. Although he is the captain, she can't beat any of the two people in front of her. Wait, two big brothers, listen to my explanation. Longbread broke out in cold sweat. There are too many people on board, and the appetite is too big. Every time the supplies are eaten up, Linlin suffers from food cravings. If she doesn't, she will get sick. Oh, that's it. It's really justified, so tell me, how do you want to die now? Quote. Hearing this, Longbread's legs trembled, and suddenly he had an idea and said, Captain Qinzi, there are not many reserves on the ship. Instead of being eaten by the crew for a few days, it is better for us to eat for a few months. Qinzi and Whitebeard looked at each other and smiled. It would have been better to have said that earlier. Quote. At this time, Charlotte Linlin next to her cried and said, Qinzi. Hearing this, Qinzi frowned, it's coming again, and quickly took out a bunch of food and wine from it. Boom. He closed the door and ran out like a fly. Marineford, in the deepest part of the island, a huge seagull-shaped military fortress towers into the sky. The front is close to the upper end. The two big characters of Marine are particularly eye-catching, with blue tiles and white bricks, covered with countless heavy artillery, and moored on the surrounding sea. Several huge Marine warships. At the top of the red line, in a circular meeting hall, 5 elderly men were scattered in the hall, either sitting or standing. They don't have a name, but they have a title that makes everyone in the world feel mysterious, 5 elders. The supreme ruler of the world government is also the pillar of the world government. In front of them, there were several people kneeling at this moment, wearing marine uniforms. They were soldiers who were led off by Qinzi on the Celestial Dragon's luxury cruise ship. A Celestial Dragon's actually died. The gold in the sky was also taken away. What are you eating? A 5 elders in a black suit and holding a cane growled angrily. The faces of the 4 people next to him were also extremely ugly. Celestial dragons died. This is a great responsibility, and it will greatly damage the prestige of the world government. Tell me exactly what happened. Another 5 elders with a long beard spoke in a voice so majestic that one could not help but submit. When several Marines heard this, cold sweat kept dripping from their bodies, and their bodies trembled uncontrollably. One of the Marines calmed down a little and spoke. Lord Charmarco collected the heavenly gold between several countries and returned to the holy land of Mariajoy. During the voyage, a small boat appeared not far away. The speed was extremely fast, and there was no sign of avoiding the luxury cruise liner at all. Quote, Lord Charmarco saw this and ordered the cruise ship to ram directly towards the boat. When it hit the boat, as the boat disintegrated, the 2 people on board were not killed in the sea, but suddenly appeared on board. According to the information on the reward order, they are Qinzi and Kaido from the Rocks Pirates. Hearing this, several 5 elders frowned. Qinzi, the newcomer of the Rocks Pirates, the youngest captain, had already shown a certain strength when he attacked the Marine branch last time. Qinzi said that he wanted to take Lord Charmark's boat, and his attitude was very different from other pirates. He respected Lord Charmark and the Celestial Dragons very much, and when Kaido next to him scolded Charmark when you were a stupid pig, you even scolded Kaido. Speaking of this, the Marine paused, and secretly glanced at the 5 elders. Their faces were ashen, but he didn't mean to interrupt him, so he continued. After Mr. Charmarco was scolded, he was extremely angry and almost fell down. At this time, Chinzi kindly helped him up so that he didn't fall down. But after that, Lord Charmarco suddenly didn't know what was going on, so he vomited blood and fell to the ground dead. A touch. Then Charmarco died. When the five elders heard this, his face was so gloomy that he was about to drip water, and he asked every word in a very ugly manner. Yes, I saw it with my own eyes. I saw it too, it's like this. Several other Marines also echoed at this time, proving the authenticity of this incident. Hearing this, the faces of the five people were shocked. Suddenly, one of the five elders suddenly remembered something, frowned and spoke. It should be an advanced application of armament hockey, internal destruction. The death of the celestial dragons was a direct result of him. The other four were shocked when they heard it. The advanced usage of armament hockey is not unusual for them, because they can do it too, but no one thought about it for a while. After all, it is unheard of for such a young person to be broken internally. Chinzi's strength may be more terrifying than we thought. What about the 3 CP0 personnel who protected Charmarco? At this time, the five elders with a long beard was shocked, and remembered that there were 3 CP0s protecting Charmarco, so he asked. CCP0. The Marine was a little confused, didn't quite understand what it meant, paused, and recalled what he had just heard, 3 CPOS. Then I figured out that the people they were referring to should be those 3 men wearing masks. One of them was punched by Chinzi with a broken arm, and then they were punched one by one, pierced through the chest and died. What? 5 elders couldn't help exclaiming when they heard this. They knew that the 3 CP0s must be dead, otherwise the cruise ship wouldn't have been snatched away by others, but they didn't expect to die so easily. They were killed one by Chinzi. You know, the strength of these 3 CP0 individuals is only that of Rear Admiral in the headquarters, but they have not been trained together since they were young. The tacit understanding is very high. If the 3 work together, even Admiral is not so easy to kill. This Chinzi is very powerful, we cannot allow him to grow, we must get rid of him. Also, the Rocks pirates must also find a way to eliminate them. You Marines are not to blame this time, but the first thing to do now is to eliminate the Rocks pirates and Chinzi. Completely block the news of the killing of celestial dragons, and increase Chinzi's bounty to 1.3 billion. Kaido's mentioned 700 million. Quote, the 5 people in charge of the world government called Naval Headquarters Kong after hearing about this incident. You said everything to me, from the initial reprimand to the subsequent fear of Chinzi and the Rocks pirates, and then to the pressure behind. Okay. Kong gave a short and forceful reply from the phone bug, and then hung up directly. Naval Headquarters. After being reprimanded by the 5 elders, Kong's face was livid at this time. He took a long breath. He knew that he should not be in a hurry to deal with the Rocks pirates, and if he wanted to wipe them all out, he still needed a long-term plan. Time passed quickly, and the news spread even faster. In a few days, the news that Celestial Dragons was killed by Chinzi, a member of the Rocks pirate group, spread throughout this sea area, and it was still spreading at an extremely fast speed. The velocity spreads around it. And the disseminators of the news are those who escaped from Chinzi's hands. It turns out that those Marines released by Chinzi did not all return to Naval Headquarters, because as Marines under the jurisdiction of the world government, they knew what the death of celestial dragons meant, and as a result, they would inevitably bear the wrath of the world government. Chances are that they will be secretly executed because they need to be silenced. So those Marines have been divided into 2 groups since they came ashore. The first group still has confidence in Marines and went back to report on their duties. The Marines who reported in the Holy Land of Mariajoy are just a few of them. After the first group returned to their residence, they released the news that the celestial dragons had been killed, so as to cause a certain degree of confusion, so as to buy more time to escape. For this, the high level of the world government was furious and clearly ordered that all the escaped Marines be arrested and sentenced to death, but even this operation could not restore their lost face. The Rocks pirates, of course, also learned the news. Captain Chinzi's bounty is 1.3 billion. The rise is too fast, it has more than doubled from 700 million. Captain Chinzi has become the second most bounty pirate in the Rocks pirates at such a young age. Yeah, but I think it makes sense. After all, kill the celestial dragons. It has to be Captain Chinzi. Now that there is a lot of rumors outside, it can be regarded as another wave of fame for our Rocks pirates. Ha 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 ha. Which pirate group can do this kind of thing? In front of our pirate group, other pirate groups are playing house. Quote, quote. On the deck of the Rocks, all the pirates couldn't help discussing after hearing that Shinzi's bounty was raised to 1.3 billion. At this time, Shinzi was leaning against the edge of the boat, and learned the content of their conversation through observation hockey, the corners of his mouth slightly raised. Shinzi doesn't really care about the amount of his bounty, because it's just an external reference, and it can't be equated with the strength of the person involved, and sometimes the bounty is low, and it's not a bad thing, at least it can let your opponent relax. But hearing them praise themselves, Shinzi is quite useful. Looking at these vicious pirates, Shinzi feels that they are a little bit noble. Learning to praise is indeed a virtue. Just as Shinzi was listening to the admiration from the pirates, there was a sound of footsteps approaching Shinzi. Looking around, a man in a red robe and holding a western sword came over. Captain John. Ha ha ha. Shinzi, you are a big celebrity now, and almost the entire sea area knows your name. Tisk tisk tisk. It's only been a few months since I became a pirate, and I've reached a bounty of 1.3 billion. Walking to Shinzi, John said with a smile. Why, are you envious? Raising his eyebrows, Shinzi took a deep look at him and said slowly. He was very surprised why John suddenly found him. If he remembered correctly, he and John should not be very familiar with each other. Is it true that it is just to talk about the bounty with yourself? Ghosts believe it. That's not enough. John touched his nose and smiled dryly. Speaking of which, since you hijacked the Celestial Dragon's ship last time and took the heavenly gold, you are the richest person in our pirate group. Every time I think of this, I am envious. Hearing this, Shinzi frowned. Why did John, an old money fan, tell him this? So what? Hey, with so much money on me, of course I have to spend it. What's the point of keeping it on the boat? Only if you spend the money, can you prove that the money is yours. You say no. John blinked and said slowly. Well, it makes sense. So if you have something to say, let it go. Shinzi didn't want to go around with him here. John obviously had something to do with him, so he said straight to the point. Ha 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 ha, it's still Shinzi, you are refreshing. Hearing Shinzi's words, John was not angry, and after complimenting Shinzi, he said again. Beside this sea area, there is an island. There is an underground casino there. I've been fooling around on the boat these days. How about it? Do you want to play a few games? John spoke with a very sincere attitude, looked at Shinzi, and waited for his reply. Hearing this, Shinzi immediately understood. Casino. This old man is probably fancying his own treasure and wants to win his own money. Why don't you ask Akoku and Silver Axe, they'd love to be with you. Hey, they don't gamble, it's meaningless. I think you, Shinzi, should be on the same path as me, so I came here specially to ask you to join me. John sighed, and seemed to feel sorry for the two captains. This time when he came to Shinzi, John really wanted to go out and have fun. Ever since he got a part of the heavenly gold, his hands were itchy. This time, he happened to pass by an area with a casino, and he couldn't hold it any longer. In addition, he also wanted to have a good relationship with Shinzi, such as winning some money from Shinzi at a certain point. After all, with Shinzi's financial resources, he should not be able to afford to lose. Oh, from what you've said, I'm the best candidate. Shinzi glanced at him and said meaningfully. For John's invitation, Shinzi didn't resist too much. To be honest, he really wanted to go and see, not because he likes to gamble, but because he was curious about what the casino in One Piece world would look like, whether there would be a croupier deal online. How about it, do you want to play two tricks? John looked at Shinzi still thinking, and asked again tentatively. Okay, since Captain John kindly invites you, how can I not give you this face? Shinzi withdrew his thoughts, cleared his throat, and spoke. Ha ha ha, it's Shinzi who is more interesting to you, so let's make a deal like that. I'll call you when the time comes, but remember to bring more treasures. John's eyes lit up when he heard Shinzi's words, and he hurriedly told Shinzi a few words. After exchanging a few more pleasantries, fearing that Shinzi would regret it, he hurriedly bid farewell to Shinzi and went back to prepare his own things. Seeing the back of John leaving, Shinzi smiled lightly. He is so stubborn and wants to win my money, then I will see if you have the ability at that time. The sky was clear, the sea was calm, and the weather at sea was as good as ever. On the rocks, Chinzi took some jewelry from his room, and after explaining some matters to Jolie Buff, he and John came to the place where the lifeboat was placed on the rocks. Compared with the last time, Chinzi went out this time much more arrogantly. Instead of taking a small wooden boat, he replaced it with a luxury lifeboat. Because most of the lifeboats on the luxury cruise ship of Celestial Dragons were bags by the Rocks pirates. If some of them were not too big to fit in, Chinzi could have been more comfortable this time's choice. As for the luxury cruise ship, the ending was very bleak. After being knocked off by a group of pirates, all the valuables on it were discarded, and it wandered on the sea with the wind, ending its service for the Celestial Dragons' lifetime. Gu la la la. A Whitebeard's signature laughter resounded on the deck. When he got the news that Chinzi was going out, he hurried over, and Chinzi's new deputy captain, Kaido, came with him. This boat is much better than last time. Whitebeard looked at Chinzi, who had already sat on the lifeboat, and said, "Ha ha ha. Yes, Edward, do you want to come up and experience it?" Gu la la la. Forget it, you go to the casino this time, I'm not interested in that place. When Whitebeard heard this, he waved his hands again and again, his money would not be given to those gamblers. Kaido on the side also said at this time, "Chinzi, I am the same." Hearing this, Chinzi was stunned. Why did this Kaido become so narcissistic? I called Whitebeard aboard, but I didn't call you. But seeing his appearance, he must have taken devil fruit. The whole person looks different, with a sense of explosive power. In just a few days, there can be such an obvious improvement, which is worthy of being the top Phantom Beast fruit. After greeting them, without any further delay, Chinzi and John left by boat, while Kaido and Whitebeard looked at the boat gradually going away, thinking about each other. After eating the fruit, Kaido felt that his strength had been improved in all aspects. He thought that during this period of time, he must work hard to develop Devil Fruit's ability as soon as possible and defeat Chinzi. Whitebeard, on the other hand, thought about keeping an eye on Chinzi's room while Chinzi was away, in case someone did something sneaky while Chinzi was away. This voyage, because it was the place John was looking for, he guided the whole process. At this time, he was holding a map and a record pointer in his hand, facing the direction on the sea. I said, "Have you seen enough? Can the ship still yaw by itself?" Chinzi was speechless. Ever since the lifeboat sailed away from the rocks, John took out the map and recorded guide to look at it from time to time. He had already set the direction when he set off, but John was just worried. It's always right to look more. If this is a step in the wrong direction, it will be 1,000 miles away. John put down the map and record guide in his hand, and said slowly, "Your worry is unnecessary. Compared to this, what should be more concerned is that the speed of this ship seems to be a bit slow." Chinzi was lying on the boat, leaning his hands on the back of his head, crossing his legs, and raised his eyebrows. Suddenly, John stared forward and frowned. "What? Why are there so many fish driving towards us?" "Fish." Hearing this, Chinzi uttered a word, then put down his hands, stood up, and looked towards John. Not far ahead, a group of fish that Chinzi didn't know at all was coming towards Chinzi, jumping out of the water into the air, and falling into the water again, just like in the animal world in the previous life, Chinzi the dolphin migration scene seen by Z. Is it the season for fish migration? Chinzi couldn't help asking. No, they seem to be being chased by something. It's sea kings. As soon as John finished speaking, he saw a monster-sized fish jumping out of the water not far away. Its huge body hit the water surface, splashing waves as big as the tide. Chinzi's lifeboat was almost overturned by the waves. "Nima, this is too big." Chinzi looked at the shocking scene in front of him, his eyes sparkled. He had only seen sea kings in anime before, and they were the most powerful species in the world's oceans due to their unusually large bodies. But now, when he was in the world of pirates and saw it with his own eyes, Chinzi was still deeply shocked. He felt that if someone with a fear of giants was here, he would faint on the spot. But while Chinzi was shocked, he was also excited. Fortunately, it's the smaller species among sea kings. After John next to him saw the whole picture clearly, his tense heart eased, and he let out a sigh of relief. "Is this still small?" Chinzi choked on John's words, and said in disbelief. However, thinking of the comparison between the super-large sea kings and the ships that appeared in the comics, it seems that the one in front of me is indeed much smaller. Yes, this is a blessing in misfortune. But it's good. I have never shown my strength before, this time I will show you how I killed this sea kings. While speaking, John has already drawn out the western sword in his hand at this time, and is about to launch an attack on the sea kings who hit him head on. But just as he was about to jump up and slash at the sea kings, Chinzi's voice interrupted him. I'll have a better idea later. Chinzi smiled slightly, raised his eyebrows at John, and said slowly. A better idea? John was taken aback, and asked with a frown. How would you like to ride sea kings? As soon as the words fell, Chinzi disappeared from the boat. Next moment, his figure appeared on Sea King's head, and he punched it directly on the head. Boom! A dull sound came from Sea King's head, and a huge force poured into Sea King's body from Chinzi's fist. The pain caused it to roll crazily on the sea surface, wanting to drill down to the bottom of the sea. However, Chinzi, who stood on its head, just smiled. Because whenever its head is about to fully enter the seawater, Chinzi will make up another punch, and the pain will make it struggle on the water surface again. In this way, under repeated repetitions by Chinzi, the Sea Kings gradually understood. As long as you don't dive into the water, you won't get beaten. So, it gave up struggling and lay flat on the water surface. Seeing this, Chinzi knew it was time, and turned to John, who was behind, and shouted loudly. Bring the steel rope from the boat. Attached to the lifeboat. At this moment, John has long been dumbfounded, his jaw is about to fall out. Can he still play like this? After a while, he realized that he took the steel rope, tied one end to the bow of the boat, jumped onto the back of Sea Kings, and tied the rope to the fin bone at the other end. Seeing that everything was ready, Chinzi patted Sea Kings on the head, and Sea Kings, who has a high IQ, immediately understood and moved forward on the sea at an extremely fast speed. The sound of breaking wind suddenly rang in Chinzi's ears. Yahoo! Feeling the sea breeze blowing in front of him, Chinzi couldn't help shouting. This speed was much faster than that of a lifeboat. So, on the sea, Chinzi used his fist as the rudder and the Sea Kings as his boat, and quickly headed towards his destination. With the assistance of Sea Kings, Chinzi and John quickly arrived at the destination island, docked the lifeboat on the shore, untied the steel rope tied to Sea Kings. Chinzi waved at it, and the other party was able to escape into the sea, disappeared. You really can surprise people. Chinzi, you are the only one who can do such things as riding Sea Kings. After going through this incident, John had to admit that he admired Chinzi a little bit, because it was okay for him to kill a Sea King, but it was impossible for him to tame with his fists like Chinzi did. No, this is called improvisation. Chinzi shrugged, showing a confident smile, then took the treasure brought by the boat and walked to the island. John looked at the bag on Chinzi's back, blinked his eyes, smiled, and followed. Chinzi was lucky to go out this time. He didn't experience the same encounter as last time. What greeted him was an abandoned place. In this island, people are crowded and bustling. Walking on the street, you can see many people with different looks, as well as various shops, such as those selling pastries, making clothes, and selling food and fruits. But there is no casino. John, did you come to the wrong place? Chinzi looked around, frowned and said. From entering this area to now, the two of them have wandered around here for nearly an hour, not to mention the casino, but they haven't even seen a single entertainment venue. It doesn't make sense. This is the place shown on the map. John took out the map, checked it carefully, and it showed that it was the place under his feet, and he was right. It's really strange. I learned about the casino in this place from one of my team members. Could it be that the kid lied to me? Thinking of this, John's complexion sank. If this was the case, he wouldn't mind pulling out that team member's tongue when he went back. Wait, look what this is. While talking, on the wall in front of Chinzi, there was a red arrow sign pointing to a place. Under its direction, Chinzi found another arrow on the ground. Chinzi and John looked at each other. Following the arrow, the two groped their way forward, and finally at an underground entrance, the red arrow turned into a block. Could it be a casino down here? John frowned and said a little uncertainly. Go in and have a look and you'll know. Chinzi said casually, took a step and walked in directly. John saw this and followed behind him. After a while, The two of them reached the end of the road, and a door appeared in front of them. There were two burly men standing at the door, each of them was close to 4 meters in height, with strong muscles. What if you two go to the casino? When Chinzi saw them, the two men also noticed Chinzi and John, and one of them asked. Yes. Chinzi's eyes moved slightly, and he answered briefly. I don't know if you two have brought enough principal. Empty glove white wolves are not allowed here. Another man asked at this time, looking at the bags on the two of them, his eyes narrowed slightly. Ha ha ha, of course. The rules of the casino. I understand. Say it. John took down the bag and opened the mouth of the bag, and Chinzi also repeated John's action. The two men leaned over, looked at the contents inside, and were stunned for a moment. The expressions on their faces changed immediately, and their tone was extremely respectful. 2. Please come in quickly. While talking, the two men pushed the door open, one left and one right. At first glance, the situation inside and the outside are two worlds. The casino is resplendently decorated and has all kinds of gambling equipment, giving Chinzi the feeling of stepping into a modern casino. There was a lot of noise, flashing lights, and crowds of people. On a huge gaming table, some people were betting on chips in their hands. Beside them, there were other large and small gaming tables. Pai Gao, dice, and poker were played in various ways. When he saw someone coming in, the person who was gambling turned his head, glanced at it, then withdrew his gaze, and continued to manage the great fortune in his hand. Here, new people come to the casino every day, so it is not uncommon to have two strange faces. Why is a casino so well hidden, making Lousy wander around outside for so long? Seeing that it was really a casino inside, John couldn't help cursing secretly. When Chinzi saw the environment in the casino, his expression changed slightly, and he was very disappointed, because Chinzi didn't see any croupiers at all, they were all rough old men. Shaking his head, Chinzi said that the grade of this place must be too low. Remembering the casino where Luffy went in the anime, there were obviously many beauties. At this time, an attendant in the casino saw Chinzi and John coming in, and immediately went up to meet them. Do you two want to change chips? Chinzi nodded, and under the leadership of his attendants, he and John came to the position where the chips were exchanged, and took out the treasures to exchange. However, when the staff saw the treasure that Chinzi and the two took out, they were obviously taken aback, and then said with a smile. Please wait a moment, I'll find our professional appraiser. In this casino, treasure cannot be directly converted into chips, because there is no standard reference value system, and it has to go through professional appraisal and be converted into Pele before proceeding to the next step. Not long after the staff left, an old man with a gray beard and a stooped figure walked over. Is it you two who want to appraise the treasure? The old man's voice was hoarse, as if something was blocked in his throat. Yes, look at how much these are worth. Chinzi took out some precious stones and pearls from the bag. After receiving the treasure handed over, the old man took out a lens in his right hand and looked at it carefully, nodding repeatedly while looking at it. Not bad. They are all good stuff. Hearing this, Chinzi and John smiled. Gold in the sky, could it be an inferior product? In the end, after negotiating with the appraiser, Chinzi and John each exchanged 1 million Bailey chips. Although knowing the value of these treasures, the price must have been deliberately lowered, but this also met the psychological expectations. After all, the two exchanged only part of the treasure, not all the treasures were exchanged. Chinzi and John glanced at each other, holding the chips in their hands, turned and walked towards the casino area, ready to fight here. And that appraiser, after sending the two away with a smile, his eyes changed. Chapter 51. We are in the casino, each playing our own way. I don't want to win your money at the same poker table. John looked at Chinzi as he walked, and said slowly. Okay, everyone can play their own way. The corners of Chinzi's mouth rose, and he replied casually. Does he not believe John's words and doesn't want to win his own money? Then why are you looking for yourself? However, Chinzi didn't take it too seriously, and had a good time here before talking. Holding the chips in his hands, Chinzi casually wandered around the casino, and finally sat down at a table of cheating money. Is it okay for me to sit here? Chinzi laid out the chips in his hands on the table, and said slowly. No problem, no problem. Those gamblers, seeing the chips in Chinzi's hands, all smiled and hurriedly Kaido. A few people looked at Chinzi's chips with greed in their eyes, as if these chips would soon become theirs. The chips in front of Chinzi are divided into 3 colors, blue, red and white. Among them, the blue chips are the most valuable, each worth 100,000 Baileys, followed by the red chips, each worth 10,000 Bailey, the last one is a white chip, and one is 1,000 Bailey. In front of Chinzi, there are 5 blue chips, 30 red chips, and the rest are white chips. In other words, in this casino, the minimum bet is 1,000 Baileys each time, and there is no upper limit for the maximum, which depends entirely on the assets of the gambler. Let's start. One of the gamblers couldn't wait any longer, tapped his finger on the table, and said. After hearing this, the attendants saw that no one raised any objections, and began to deal cards to each gambler. The casino rules in High Z World are similar to Chinzi's previous life. Although the name of Zajanhua is different here, it is called Meng Sanjiang here, but the gameplay is basically the same. Without looking at the cards in his hand, Chinzi threw 2 white chips in the middle, and other people also bet after seeing this. This link is called masking, and generally speaking, it is to maximize the betting money on the poker table. After almost every round of cards dealt, there will be such a link. More or less, it all depends on the mood and financial resources of the gamblers. If you don't want to be fooled, you can just look at the cards, but after watching the cards, if you still want to follow, you need to double the bet. Soon, a man in a black hat couldn't bear it and began to look at the cards. He was frowning and hesitating whether to call. It was obvious that the cards in his hand should not be bad, but it won't be very big. After hesitating for a while, he still followed the 5,000 Baileys. Chinzi glanced at his expression and smiled. This is a big taboo for fried gold flowers, because from the expression, he can tell the size of this person's cards. But Chinzi himself, of course, doesn't know how to look at the cards, because with observation hockey, he knows what the cards in his hand are without looking. A pair of K with a. This card is not too small in Jinhua. Using observation hockey, Chinzi looked at the card in the hand of the gambler with the black hat out of curiosity. K, J, and 9 are all plum blossom colors. Golden flower. I rely on. Chinzi cursed inwardly, hesitant about this card. I thought he was Xiaobai, but he turned out to be an old fox. If I didn't have observation hockey, I would have been deceived by his expression. Without hesitation, Chinzi simply folded his cards. At the same time, he used observation hockey to check the hands of several other players. There was no one bigger than the man in the black hat. In this round, he won with the highest card. After being warmed up, Chinzi didn't push it any further. Every time the attendants dealt cards, they would first use observation hockey to check them. Ever since, after dozens of rounds, Chinzi had more and more chips in front of him, and Chinzi won almost all the other people's chips. In the middle of this, Chinzi also deliberately lost a few hands, which were obviously rubbish cards, but kept following a few people with bigger hands than himself. The main purpose of doing this was to let others think that it's purely luck, otherwise, if you keep winning, you will inevitably be suspected. Under Chinzi's self-contained see-through function, after winning the fried gold flower table, Chinzi won several tables in a row in this casino, and the previous 1 million chips now also became 8 million. Looking at John on the other side, he also won a lot of money, and his mouth almost reached his ears. Although he didn't have as much as himself, he still had more than 6 million by visual estimation. At this time, the owner of the casino saw the 2 people who had been winning money. His eyes were slightly cold, and he turned and walked to the back room. After a while, 2 people walked out of that room. One has sharp eyes and a thin body, the other has no hair and is short in stature. Both of them are masters of gambling in this casino. Let's go back to Chinzi. At this time, he was playing cards on the large gambling table in the middle. The game of this gaming table was stud. In fact, Chinzi has never played stud, but from the gambler played by the Star Master in the previous life, he probably understands the rules of this card. Each family first issues a whole card, which can only be turned over when the winner is decided. Starting from the second card, each time a card is dealt, a bet is made, and cards can be discarded in the middle, a total of 5 cards. Excuse me, can I join the gaming table? The thin man came to Chinzi, stood aside, and asked politely to the four present. Of course, there is just one person missing. Chin-Z smiled, pointed to a position opposite, and said casually. Under his observation Haki, Chin-Z watched the casino owner enter that room, and when he came out, he knew in his heart that this person was specially sent by the casino owner to deal with him, but he was not afraid at all. After he was seated, the attendants began to deal the cards. In front of Chin-Z was a 9 of spades, the skinny man was a Q of diamonds, and the other 3 cards were K of spades, 7 of clubs, and J of clubs. Each of the 5 players has a land card under them. At the beginning of the first round of betting, Chin-Z threw a red chip into it without hesitation, have also been replaced by red chips and blue chips. When other people saw this, they bet one after another, because the value of a card cannot be judged by just one card, so no one would choose to fold their cards. After the second card was dealt, Chin-Z called another 10,000. His current cards were 9 of spades and 10 of diamonds, and his whole card was a J of diamonds, which might lead to a straight. The skinny man's cards were Q of diamonds and clubs. 4. The whole card is 7 of clubs. And one of the other 3 has the biggest cards in the game. The cards on the face are K of spades and K of diamonds, and the whole card is 6 of clubs. At the end of the second round, 2 people folded their cards. The deterrent effect of a pair of kings is still great. After the 3 rounds of cards were dealt, Chin-Z's fourth card was the 7 of clubs. Chin-Z smiled and folded the cards directly. There was no chance of a straight on this board, and the maximum could only be a pair of jacks. As a result, only the pair K-man and the skinny man were left in the game. After the fourth round of dealing, the emaciated man's cards were Q of diamonds, 4 of clubs, 7 of clubs, and the man in black had K of spades, K of diamonds, 9 of clubs, 6 of clubs in his hole. Judging from the cards alone, the man is more likely to win, because a pair of kings is much more than a pair of 4s. At this time, on the table, there were almost 300,000 chips. The fifth round of card dealing begins. This time the skinny man gets a 6 of diamonds, and the skinny man gets an ace of spades. Thin man, Q, 4, 4, 6, the whole card is 7. The man in black, K, A, 9, the whole card is 6. Obviously, the skinny guy lost. His 5-card top was a pair of 4s, and the other guy had a pair of kings. However, after the fifth round of cards, the skinny man did not choose to fold, but continued to bet, throwing 2 blue chips into it. Seeing this, Chin-Z frowned. This skinny man dared to place a bet at this time, which could only explain 2 possibilities. One is that he doesn't know his whole cards, and he is betting that his whole cards will be 4, so 3-4s will naturally win the opponent. One is to know your whole cards, but still have confidence. Of the 2 possibilities, Chin-Z was more inclined to the latter. After all, as a professional in the casino, he was sent to deal with him, so he must have some support. And looking at the thin man's calm and sharp eyes, Chin-Z confirmed his guess in his heart, and at the same time was quite curious, what would he do next? The man in black looked at his own cards, then at his opponent's cards, and followed with 200,000 chips. After all, his cards were too likely to win. If his opponent wanted to win, he could only hope that his whole card was a 4, which was the only one way to win. One can imagine how small the probability is. So, under the continuous betting of the 2, there were 1 million chips on the table soon. In the end, the man in black couldn't stand it any longer, and chose to open the card, because of financial reasons, but also because he was a little scared by the momentum of the opponent. Under the attention of everyone, the thin man put the whole card in his hand. At this time, Chin-Z's Haki was activated. The moment the thin man wanted to reveal the card, he clearly saw the whole card 7, which suddenly changed. Wait for him, throw it on the poker table. 4 of spades. Suddenly, the man in black was dumbfounded, and he was stunned. He didn't expect that he would encounter the worst situation, and the expression on his face was extremely complicated. His only hope now is that his whole card can be a king, only in this way can he win the opponent. But this is obviously impossible, because his whole card is 6, which has not changed from the beginning to the end. And through this gamble, Chin-Z understood that the biggest reliance of the skinny man was playing tricks. When he put the cards in his hand, he used a card in his sleeve at a speed that the naked eye could not catch. The whole cards were replaced. For this, Chin-zi sneered in his heart, this casino is really not a thing, and he actually took the lead in cheating. Next, at this poker table, the five played another 10 games. Among them, Chin-zi has been paying attention to the movements and status of the thin man. In the 10 games, he folded in 2 games, cheated in 3 games, and bet properly in 5 games. During this period, the other 3 people lost almost all their chips to the skinny man. Because Chin-zi had been observing, he didn't make a bet and folded every time in the second round, so he didn't lose much money at all. Chips remained almost at 8 million. It's just the two of us. Continue. The skinny man asked Chin-zi in a soft voice. Of course, I'm not enjoying myself yet. Chin-zi spread his hands and said with a smile. Seeing this, the other 3 gamblers did not choose to leave, and became spectators. Deal the cards. Hearing the words, the attendant next to him dealt the cards in front of the 2 of them, and his movements were extremely standard and skillful. Chin-zi, 7 of diamonds, 8 of spades in the whole card. Thin man, 9 of clubs, ace of spades. Follow 100,000 first. Chin-zi picked up a blue chip in front of him and threw it in the middle. Okay, follow. The thin man smiled slightly, and picked up a blue chip in front of him and threw it in. The second round of betting is over, and the servants deal out the third round of cards. This time Chin-zi got the 5 of spades, and the skinny man got the Q of diamonds. Judging from the cards on the paper, the current cards of both of them have the possibility of making a straight, but if they are all formed, the straight of the skinny man will be bigger, and he has more flower cards than Chin-zi. Chin-zi's card didn't have any flowers. It seems that you are not good at this card. Seeing Chin-zi's card, the thin man said calmly, and at the same time grabbed 5 blue chips from his front and threw them in the middle. It's not the end, who knows? Chin-zi smiled, grabbed a handful of chips, and waved his hand in an extremely chic posture. There are red, blue, and blue chips, and they must have at least 7 or 800,000. When the other party saw this, his eyes narrowed, he sneered, did not speak, and followed hundreds of thousands. Chin-zi did this to make the other party think that he was a stupefied young man. In this way, he would relax his vigilance and have no scruples about cheating. The 4th round of licensing is over. Chin-zi looked at the cards dealt to his hand and smiled, everything was under control. In fact, when the first card was dealt, Chin-zi used observation hockey to show the cards, not only his and his opponent's whole cards, but also the stack of cards in the servant's hand. If dealt in this order, Chin-zi's final cards will be straight 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, among which the whole card is 8. The thin man's cards are 8, 9, J, Q, A, among which the whole card is A. This is also the reason why Chin-zi dared to bet with him like this. Although he said that he would not cheat, this did not prevent him from judging whether he could win. And when the time comes, in order to make a straight, the opponent will definitely want to change the whole cards. After the 4 cards were dealt, the cards for Chin-zi and the skinny man were Chin-zi, 7 of diamonds, 5 of spades, 6 of diamonds, 8 of spades in the whole card. Thin man, 9 of clubs, Q of diamonds, J of clubs, ace of spades. Under the continuous betting of the 2, the chips on the table at this time were nearly 3 million Baileys. Some gamblers nearby also gathered around at this time. Seeing the money on the table, they were all very excited, and they were all looking forward to who would win. The 4th round of betting is completed, and the 5th round of cards is dealt. Chin-zi, 7 of diamonds, 5 of spades, 6 of diamonds, 4 of clubs, 8 of spades on the whole card. Thin man, 9 of clubs, Q of diamonds, J of clubs, 8 of hearts, ace of spades. The stakes are too small, it's boring to play like this. Chin-zi yawned and said in a frivolous tone, I want stud. As soon as the words fell, Chin-zi pushed out all the chips in front of him, and looked at the thin man provocatively. Seeing this scene, the gamblers' onlookers were shocked. Such a big hand at such a young age is really grand, and one look at the family can tell that the family is either rich or expensive, and they look at Chin-zi with envy in their eyes. As for the thin man, his face darkened. He didn't expect that Chin-zi would be the first to stud, his eyes moved slightly, and then he suddenly laughed. Ha ha ha, youth is full of enthusiasm. It's really nostalgic. I'm stud too. After all, he used his hands hard, and the nearly 10 million Bailey chips in front of him were pushed in by him. Wow, stud on both sides. Fight to the death. Ha ha ha. This chip is almost 20 million. This kind of gamble is rare. And 39, and 39. The crowd of onlookers couldn't help discussing after seeing both sides stud at the same time. As for Chinzi, after seeing stud on the opposite side, he smiled. Then I will open the cards first. As soon as the words fell, Chinzi flipped his hand on the whole card, and the 8 of spades appeared in people's sight. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 straight. This card is fine. The chance of winning is very high, it depends on the opponent's card. If the opponent wants to win, the whole card must be 10. Seeing Chinzi's whole card, the thin man sneered. At the same time, he touched the whole card in his hand and threw it on the table. What brand is this, Nima? What the hell is this? Under the watchful eyes of the onlookers, there was nothing on the whole cards of the thin man, and the front of the playing cards was white. You're a cheater. Chinzi suddenly became violent, came to the side of the thin man, grabbed his arm, and shook it vigorously. Clatter. Poker cards kept shaking out of his sleeves. At this moment, the skinny man was dumbfounded, and stood there dumbfounded. Next moment, Chinzi pulled out the western sword from John, who was still gambling, and pulled the thin man, whose face had turned pale with fright, to the table, pressed his arm, raised the knife and dropped it. Poochie. Cheating. Chop hands. What? The cry of killing a pig resounded in the casino, and some gamblers who were gambling also put down their hands at this time and hurried over here. Everyone come and have a look. This man is cheating in the casino. Look at these playing cards, they are all evidence of his cheating. Chinzi returned the western sword to John, walked up to the man, picked up his arm on the ground, pulled out the playing cards that hadn't fallen to the ground, and showed them to others. It's like a deck of cards hidden in the sleeve. This old man is too courageous. I hate cheating people the most in my life. Cutting off one hand is a good deal for him. This kind of person, he should be pulled out and chopped. Fortunately, I was caught. If I meet you in the future, you will lose everything. Quote, quote. Some people immediately understood when they saw the cards Chinzi drew from his arm and the playing cards scattered on the ground. At this time, the thin man had stopped screaming, his lips were white, his head was covered with beads of sweat, and he firmly pressed the severed arm with his other hand. However, just when he thought the broken arm was over, the 3 gamblers who played stud with him at the beginning rushed over, punched and kicked him, and scolded him while beating. Lousy lost all his money by cheating. Look at me, I won't beat you to death today. I'll just say it. A pair of 4S, where do you have the courage to stay with me for a long time with a pair of old K, it turns out that you are cheating. Quote, quote. At this time, the casino boss also rushed over. Just as he pushed through the crowd, he saw 3 people beating the emaciated man, and seeing the gloating faces of the people next to him, he understood. But he could only watch blankly from the side, not daring to go over and pull people. Because if other people know that this cheater belongs to him, then this casino will not need to be opened in the future, and he even hopes that the thin man will be beaten to death directly, so that he doesn't have to worry about him leaking the secret in the future. On the casino floor, as the thin man's voice became weaker and weaker, the 3 men also stopped, and someone went over to snort and spoke. Died. I can't help but fight. Quote, quote. Ha ha ha. I'm so sorry, everyone. I didn't expect such a scum to appear in my casino. It disturbed everyone's pleasure. It's my dereliction of duty. Come here, a few people, drag this trickster out and throw it away. At this time, the casino owner, who learned that the man was dead, said. After finishing speaking, a few people came over and dragged the emaciated man away. Seeing the emaciated man being dragged out like a dead pig, Chinzi felt nothing in his heart. It is a big taboo to cheat in a casino. Suddenly thinking of myself, Chinzi thought about it. Observation hockey should not belong to cheating, but to supernatural powers. As for why the thin man's cards turned out like that, it was Chinzi's fault. When the skinny man was about to change cards, Chinzi activated armament hockey. With his hands on the table, he exerted a little force to control the power of emission, starting with his own fingers, using the table as the medium, and transmitting the force to the in his arm. Combined with observation hockey, he accurately transmitted the strength to the card surface, and used a little internal destruction to smooth out the front lines of the playing cards. This series of actions happened in an instant, and when the thin man raised his hand to exchange cards, it was almost completed simultaneously. This is the first time Shinzi uses armament hockey and observation hockey to perform subtle operations at the same time. Although the scene is not very grand, it shows Shinzi's current precise control over the two. I'm so sorry. Go on, everybody, go on. Seeing that the man was thrown out, the casino boss gave everyone a smile, glanced at Shinzi inadvertently when he turned his head, and left with the shorter man. What a disappointment. The boss of the casino is really picky. He just talks about it without any real expression. Amidst the swearing, the gamblers returned to their positions and continued to devote themselves to the great cause. Hey, people here feel that the technology is not good, it's boring. Shinzi, do we want some? John, who had taken the western sword in Shinzi's hand, had put it back into his waist at this moment, looked at Shinzi, raised his eyebrows and said. Shinzi did not speak, walked to Stud's gaming table, and put away the chips on the table. Some of it was stained with the blood of the emaciated man, so he called the attendant to clean it, then walked back to John, and said. Yes, what are you talking about playing? Well, I've almost played these cards, how about playing dice? John noticed that Shinzi had won from 1 million to nearly 20 million by playing poker. He didn't have much confidence in winning in this respect, so he suggested to play other tricks. As for why the dice are played, it is because John is very confident in this. Without even thinking about it, Shinzi agreed directly, but secretly said in his heart. John, an old man, couldn't wait any longer. Okay, let's go and change the chips, all of them are 100,000 blue chips, so that we can have passion. Seeing that Shinzi agreed, John smiled happily and said quickly. John actually doesn't care about the little money he wins in the casino. No matter how he wins, it will be tens of millions. But Shinzi, the mobile vault, is different. He can easily grab hundreds of millions from himself. I also think, otherwise it would be tiring to hold so many chips. Shinzi shrugged and said, after finishing speaking, the two of them walked to the chip exchange area. In the casino, in a luxuriously decorated room. What, you say that gambler is a big pirate? The casino owner was full of surprise in his words, looking at the gray-haired and stooped treasure appraiser beside him, he asked incredulously. Then what's the name of this pirate? After stabilizing his emotions, the casino owner continued to ask. It's called Shinzi. The appraiser's face was ugly, and he faltered in his answer. Shinzi, I seem to have heard of this name somewhere. The casino boss frowned and scratched his head, but he just couldn't remember. Shinzi, the one who killed the celestial dragons and grabbed the gold from the sky. Marine offers a reward of 1.3 billion Baileys. When the appraiser said these words, sweat was dripping from his head, which showed his panic at this time. The casino boss stood up abruptly, dumbfounded. Shinzi, who is almost well known in this sea area, kills celestial dragons, wins the gold in the sky, and is the captain of the Rocks Pirates. He couldn't figure out how such a person would come to his small casino. Why did you just say it now? The casino owner yelled at the appraiser. I didn't know it at first. When he came to appraise treasures, I just thought he was an ordinary pirate. Because the treasures were stolen from other places. But when I went back and took out the latest official reward order to read, I realized that the person was Shinzi. The appraiser's face was bitter, and his voice was trembling slightly. It's over. We can't handle this matter. Contact the marine personnel quickly. Don't provoke them before this. The casino owner smiled wryly and shook his head. Thinking of his previous actions, he wished to slap himself twice. Fortunately, Shinzi didn't find out that the skinny man was sent by him. Contact Marine. In that case, our casino. Thinking of this, the appraiser tried to remind him. It's okay. We have given such important information to Marine, they shouldn't make it difficult for us. Said the casino owner. After speaking, he hurriedly picked up the phone and dialed a number. On the blue sea, somewhere unknown. A huge blue boat is slowly moving forward on the water. On the towering flagpole, a simple white flag is fluttering in the wind, with a flying seagull and the capitalized English letter, R, printed on it. The translation is, Marine. Yes, this is the largest force in the world, the warship of Marine. On the deck, there were hundreds of Marines in sailor suits. Next moment, Loud voices came from their mouths, loud slogans, coupled with standard movements they were training. And at the front of them, a tall figure stood out, wearing a coat with "Justice" printed on it, and his purple hair shone with a different kind of light under the sun. It's none other than Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral, Black Arm Zephyr. At this time, a Marine ran over from the deck in a hurry with a phone bug. "Zephyr Vice Admiral, your call." Taking the phone bug handed to him, Zephyr frowned. "How many times have I said, as a Marine, be steady?" What? The news is reliable. Zephyr, who had just finished speaking to be steady, asked with wide-eyed eyes after hearing the news from the Marine Branch Rear Admiral on the phone bug. "The news was provided by a casino owner in my jurisdiction. I have sent someone to investigate. It is absolutely reliable. He is still in the casino." The voice over there seemed very urgent, but very sure. "Okay, don't act rashly, wait for me to pass." After Zephyr finished speaking, he immediately hung up the phone. After the death of celestial dragons, the world government frantically put pressure on Marine, demanding that all the Rocks pirates be wiped out, at least to kill Chinzi, who was wielding celestial dragons. However, Naval Headquarters considered that the time was not ripe and they could not fight the Rocks pirates head-on, but they were under pressure and had to do something, so they sent Zephyr to the area of the Rocks route to patrol, hoping to bring some useful intelligence. Zephyr has done this kind of thing many times before. I thought this time would be the same as usual, just a routine inspection, but I didn't expect to meet the captain of the Rocks pirates, and he was the one designated by the above to be killed, Chinzi. Of course, he would not let go of such an opportunity. For a newly rising pirate rookie, Zephyr really wants to test whether Chinzi is as powerful as the legends say. If not, he doesn't mind beheading Chinzi on the spot. After ordering everyone to prepare for battle, Zephyr's eyes were sharp, and he commanded the ship to head towards the casino at full speed. In the casino, in front of a dice table, Chinzi and John sat facing each other after exchanging chips. In front of Chinzi, there were nearly 200 blue chips, and in front of John, there were more than 100 blue chips. A circle of gamblers stood around the two of them. They had never seen such a big gamble since this casino. The minimum bet was 100,000 Baileys. Be excited on the field. How to play? Chinzi fiddled with the chips in front of him, and said casually. "Let's bet big and small, let's not play those fancy ones. 3 dice, if the total points are above 9, it's big, and if it's 9 or less, it's small. Let the servants present shake the dice. The two of us will not touch the dice during the whole process. After the servants have rolled the dice, we will bet on the big and small. The one that wins in the end wins. When the points are 18 or 3, the loser will pay 3 times the compensation." John briefly introduced the rules and winked at Chinzi. "Okay, the rules are clearly introduced. It seems that you have played a lot." Chinzi raised his eyebrows and said with a smile. "Ha ha ha, it's okay, okay," John said Kaido. As a veteran, he certainly wouldn't say that he was good at it. "Then let's begin." Chinzi weighed the chips in his hand, turned his head and said to the attendant next to him. The crisp sound of dice came from the black pot in the attendant's hand. Boom! A dull voice sounded, and the black pot in the attendant's hand had been turned upside down on the table. Chinzi glanced casually. 2, 3, 6, add up to 11 points, which is big. Let me bet first. $1 million. Chinzi took out 10 blue chips and threw them on the large area in the middle. Under Chinzi's precise force, the 10 chips were neatly stacked on top of it. If you have money, bet $1 million Baileys as soon as you come up. This is gambling. We are all playing tricks. I really don't take money as money. Seeing Chinzi toss $1 million directly, the gamblers present felt a little short of breath. This is just the beginning, and they have already played such a big game. Since you bet big, I'll bet small. John took a deep look at Chinzi, then picked up the 10 chips in front of him and threw them over. At the same time, John tapped lightly on the table with his hand on the side of the table, and the dice under the black pot flipped inside as if they had been hit by something. At this time, the points of the dice change, and 2, 1, and 4 add up to 8 points, which is small. Chinzi looked at the dice in the jar and smiled slightly. It turned out that this was John's method. Use observation hockey to check the points in the dice, and then cooperate with the control of strength to make the dice change by tapping the table. Open it, Chin-Z said slowly. The attendant heard the words and uncovered the black dice GU. At this moment, John took another look with knowledge, and found that the dice had not changed. The points displayed by the 3 dice are still 2, 1, 4. Cried the servant. 8 o'clock, little one. Hearing this, John frowned slightly, and swiped the chips on the table. It was a bit easy to win, and John couldn't help but feel a little suspicious. He thought it would be a tragic fight. Could it be that Chin-Z is not very good at it? The second round started, and with the sound of the attendant rolling the dice, the black pot was already on the table. 1, 2, 3, the number of points is 6, which is small. Chin-Z threw 2 million Baileys over the small area. And John repeated his tricks, turning the points into 3, 5, 3, and betting 2 million on the big one. The point is 11, big. This time, the doubt in John's eyes was much less, because Chin-Z didn't seem to be as difficult as he imagined. In the next few rounds, John won several more times, and the further he got to the back, the louder he laughed. During this period, he deliberately lost to Chin-Z twice, so that Chin-Z could taste some sweetness. During this period of time, Chin-Z's emotions fluctuated greatly, from calmness at the beginning, to helplessness later, to anger, and finally to dissatisfaction. I can't believe my luck is so bad today. Come again. At this time, Chin-Z roared and stood up. At this time, there were only 5 million chips left on his table. Hey, don't get excited, luck is hard to say, maybe you will get better next time. John pretended to comfort him and said that he had fully believed that Chin-Z was a noob playing dice, and even more a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Chin-Z's 2 wins in a row were deliberately let go, and John felt that everything was under control. Servant, hurry up, Chin-Z urged the attendant who was rolling the dice, showing his urgency and impatience. Boom, a dull voice sounded, and the black jar was knocked upside down on the table. I can't believe it this time. Bet all big, except for the 5 million chips, plus this bag of treasure. Chin-Z directly bet all the chips, and also bet the bag containing the treasure. Brother, don't get on top. Today's luck really stinks. Gambling is the worst thing to do impulsively, so calm down. Take your time. Yeah. Quote. The gamblers next to him, seeing Chin-Z betting all his money on it, actually began to persuade him, just like people who persuade prostitutes to be good. Ha. If that's the case, then I'll play a big game with you. I bet small. Although my bag of treasures is not as large as yours, it is enough to add all the chips. John also stood up at this time and bet all the money. He was extremely excited at this moment, and he was waiting for this moment. He had been hanging on to Chin-Z slowly before, but after Chin-Z was about to go berserk, John knew that this moment was almost coming. This time, John is going to give Chin-Z the final blow, turning the dice into 3 ones, and triple the win. Now the points of the black pot on the table are 4, 5, and 6, which add up to 15 points, which is the largest. Under the control of John's strength, the 3 dice instantly turned into 3 ones. Open it, John said excitedly. At this moment his eyes were fixed on the dice inside. The attendant reached out and began to uncover the black jar. Almost at the same time, Chin-Z's hand rested on the table without any knocking, but the force had already been transmitted to the black jar. As soon as the dice change, 6, 6, 6. John, who noticed the sudden change of the dice, was startled. He stared at Chin-Z and knocked on the table, but it was useless because there was an invisible force canceling out all his strength. The next moment, the height C jar has been opened by the attendants. 3-6s, leopard. Boom, John just felt like his mind went blank. 3-6s add up to 18 points. The bet is right this time. I have lost so many times before, and I made the right bet on the biggest bet this time. It's really a turn of events. When luck is bad to a certain extent, it will be better once. Awesome, you really made the right bet. 666. What kind of heaven-defying luck is this? All the previous luck has been accumulated and exploded at this moment. In accordance with the rules mentioned earlier, the points on the dice will be tripled. It's like this, then you won't have to pay for it. Quote. The gamblers' onlookers couldn't help discussing when they saw the dice being revealed in 3 6s. In the gambling game, this kind of life-saving and turnaround thing is what they like to watch the most, because it allows them to see the vagaries of the game and the fairness of luck, and they will never always favor a certain person. And some gamblers thought of the rule that John said before: if there are 3 sixes or 3 ones, then the loser will pay 3 times the betting funds, which means that 2 bets on the compensation table need to be paid, times the funds. Thinking of this, the gamblers all looked at John in unison. At this time, John was already slumped on the chair, and now he had a strong feeling that after playing eagle all his life, he was finally pecked by a little sparrow. Wrong. After this whole stage, I am the little sparrow, a little sparrow who has been manipulated. John looked up at Qinzi, remembering the sudden change of the dice at the last moment and the invisible force. There was a trace of fear in John's heart. Because Qinzi is not only stronger than him, but also has a frighteningly high IQ. In fact, from the moment he entered the gambling game, Qinzi had already decided to win or lose. The money that John won before was all to make the other party less vigilant. The emotional fluctuations made John believe that he had no choice but to play luck with the current situation. Only in this way, John will finally take the bait. Otherwise, if Qinzi bet all his assets and the bag of treasure from the beginning, with John's prudence, he would definitely give up that round of betting directly. Ha ha ha, you were right. Luck is hard to say, maybe it will suddenly get better next time. Thanks to your words, I dare to bet so big. Otherwise, my luck will come, and I won't be able to grasp it. Qinzi smiled and threw a grateful look at John. To kill is to punish the heart. Hearing Qinzi's words and looking at his current expression, John felt tens of thousands of idiots galloping in his heart, but he couldn't express it. After all, he also used disgraceful means, but he was not as good as others, and accidentally fell into Qinzi's eyes. Then buried in the pit. You won, I have nothing to say. John's face was ashen. He originally wanted to ask Qinzi out and slaughter him, but he didn't expect that he would become the one being slaughtered. This made it difficult for him to accept, but he had to accept it. He can play tricks with other gamblers, turn his face, or cut people off directly, but when facing Qinzi, he has absolutely no choice. Hey, luck is such a thing. There are good times and bad times. Let's come again next time we have a chance. Then let's see how much the treasure you bet on is worth the triple compensation. Qinzi raised his eyebrows, looked at the bag of treasure on the table and nearly 30 million chips, and said slowly, "Go back and talk. Go back and talk." John shook his head with a wry smile, wishing he could slap himself in the face, set a triple reward, and dug a big hole for himself. Seeing Qinzi's half-smile expression, he cursed inwardly, heck, with such a dirty heart, who will play with you in the future? Okay, then let's go back and discuss slowly. Qinzi was not in a hurry. He put more emphasis on the last 4 words when he spoke. He was not afraid of John's repudiation at all. After finishing speaking, he got up and cleared away the treasures and chips on the table. Right now, from outside the casino door, someone rushed in and shouted loudly, "Shut up, both of you. It's all Marines outside." Quote, "What? How could Marine come here? You'd better not lie, or else I'll take your skin off. It looks like he's real. Someone has informed you. This casino is so hidden, it's impossible to be discovered. Never mind him, run away." The gamblers' onlookers were shocked when they heard that Marine had surrounded the place, and then they reacted immediately and dispersed, losing interest in watching the show. But soon, their running figures retreated again. Because at this time Marine has already entered the casino. The person in the lead had purple hair and a tall stature. Black Arm Zephyr. At a glance, Qinzi recognized the other party. The highest combat power of Naval Headquarters, Marine Admiral with powerful armament hockey, Black Arm Zephyr, has conquered countless pirates in his life, but did not kill a single person, also known as, "Don't Kill, Admiral." Wrong. According to the timeline, Zephyr at this time should not be Admiral, but Vice Admiral. Oh, I didn't expect you to know me. Qinzi. Zephyr was a little surprised. He didn't expect that Qinzi, a newly rising pirate, could call out his name. He remembered that this was the first time he met Qinzi. However, compared to Zephyr's astonishment, what Qinzi and Zephyr said fell into the ears of these gamblers, and they were even more shocked, as if a thunderbolt flashed in their minds. Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral, Zephyr. One of the highest combat powers in Marine. Qinzi. Is that the youngest captain of the Rocks pirates who killed the celestial dragons with a bounty of 1.3 billion, Qinzi. This place is Hedehinang, and there are two world-class figures at the same time. It turns out that the one who has been gambling with us is actually the great pirate, Qinzi. He is completely different from what I imagined. These gamblers were completely shocked at this time. When they came to this casino to play, they could meet two legendary characters, especially Qinzi, who had heard this name more than once. Inside, even more famous than Marine Vice Admiral. In their impression, they thought that a big pirate like Qinzi would have a muscular, extremely tall, and extremely vicious image. But they never expected that there would be such a white and clean young man with a height of only 1.8 meters. At first glance, they thought Qinzi was some kind of rich second generation. What, John, you're here. At this time, Zephyr noticed John, another captain of the Rocks pirate group. The casino owner didn't know him, but he knew it. At this moment, Zephyr felt something was wrong, because there was a huge error in intelligence. Qinzi was already very difficult to deal with, and now there was a captain-level person. He was not sure to take down the two at the same time. Quick, the information is wrong, contact Naval Headquarters. Zephyr's voice was very small, but it still couldn't escape Qinzi's ears, but it didn't matter, because if the people from Naval Headquarters had to arrive here, the matter would have been dealt with long ago. And in this area, Zephyr should be the only one with strong combat power, otherwise, knowing that he was here, he would definitely not be the only one who came to arrest him. Ha ha ha, I didn't expect me to be quite famous. To be missed by your Naval Headquarters. I don't know if it's my luck or my misfortune. At this time, John completely restrained his uncomfortable expression when he lost money before, put his right hand on the western sword at his waist, and walked slowly to Qinzi's side. Looking at Zephyr's eyes, full of unkindness. HMPH, Captain John of the Rocks Pirates. He's doing a lot of evil. I don't think I know your notoriety. Zephyr looked at John who was coming, narrowed his eyes slightly, and said. The gamblers on the side were shocked again when they heard this. This guy wearing a red robe and holding a western sword is actually the captain of the Rocks Pirates. Another big pirate. I thought he was just a little guy. I'm numb. Why did two big pirates come to us to gamble? This little money is nothing to them. I don't know, I just hope that Marine can deal with these two big pirates, and then I want to go home. Even if the Marines catch me back, it's better than facing the two big pirates. Quote quote. The gamblers' onlookers looked at Qinzi and John at this time, and they no longer had the expressions of watching the show before. The two pirates of the Rocks Pirates, and both of them were captains, for ordinary people like them, means extremely dangerous. Now they only hope that Marine can quickly deal with the pirates and give them peace. What kind of reputation do you care about when you are a pirate? But I've heard of you. It seems that you are very powerful. I, the captain of the Rocks Pirates, want to learn from you today. I must have defeated you. Believe in my notoriety. Oh no, it's notoriety, it will be raised to another level. John giggled, looking at Zephyr with provocative eyes. Losing to Qinzi in the gambling game, John was already suffocating his anger, but this time Marine came, John just had a chance to vent his anger. Qinzi, last time you played Sea Kings, you stole the limelight, this time let you take a good look at my strength. As for the trash fish in the Marine, I'll leave it to you. John had already pulled out his western sword at this time, turned his head and said to Qinzi on the side. Hey, be the first bird, then you work hard. Qinzi smiled at Kaido. Qinzi couldn't be more happy to ask John to volunteer, so that he can paddle beside him reasonably. On the other hand, Zephyr smiled lightly when he heard what John said, and the one-on-one match was exactly what he wanted. Because compared to one-on-two, it is obviously easier to defeat one by one, and this can also delay time and wait for support. Go out and fight. You can't use your hands and feet here. Qinzi simply pack those chips and other things, and he will have to exchange the banknotes later. If they break this place, his money will be for nothing. Finished speaking. A group of people rushed outside. At this time, they seemed incomparably harmonious, and they were silent the whole time. Outside the casino, there was a crowd of people. Some local people couldn't help looking this way when they saw Marine coming. There were hundreds of Marines, wearing Marine uniforms, holding muskets tightly in their hands, pointing their muzzles at the venue. Qinzi and John on the board. Among the crowd, a few citizens recognized Shinzi as the big pirate of the Rocks Pirates and shouted loudly. Immediately, the crowd dispersed in a rush, and all disappeared within the field of vision. Zephyr on the field, as long as the crowd dispersed, without any further hesitation, he stepped on his feet and flied towards the distance as if he had installed a launcher. When John saw this, a sneer sneered at the corner of his mouth, and immediately followed. In order not to hurt the marine soldiers during the fight, Zephyr chose a relatively remote place. I didn't expect you to choose to fight me one-on-one. Your choice is confident, but also stupid. Standing on a rock, Zephyr looked at John, who had already chased him. His aura suddenly dissipated, and he said slowly, "Stupid or not, we'll talk after we fight." While speaking, John had already arrived in front of Zephyr at this time. His red robe was fluttering in the wind, and the western sword in his hand was chilling under the sunlight, and he slashed forward. This moment, Zephyr's arms wrapped around his chest were already opened, and his originally thick arms suddenly swelled in a circle. Feeling the fierce momentum coming towards his face, his eyes narrowed slightly, and he let out a low drink. Armed color hardening. Before the words fell, Zephyr's arms were already rendered black, with a metallic luster under the sun. Clang. In the silence, there seemed to be a roar, which was deafening. John's western sword slashed on Zephyr's arms, as if cutting a piece of steel, sputtering hot sparks outward, and the stone under Zephyr's feet was shaken to pieces due to the huge force. The flying gravel hit the trees, directly piercing them. Accuracy is fine. It's a pity that the strength is almost there. Zephyr looked up sharply, narrowing his eyes in amusement. Next moment, the muscles of his arms trembled, as if a prehistoric force poured into his arms from within his body. He grabbed the western sword, his arms shook violently, and the force came like overwhelming mountains and seas. Ding! Under the vibration of huge force, the western sword was shaking crazily, as if crying to its master. So strong. John's face was startled, and the hand holding the western sword was pulled away from Zephyr's arms in time. His right hand tightly held the western sword that was still trembling slightly, and he retreated 10 meters back. The next moment, John flipped his wrist, and lifted the western sword from bottom to top. A huge sword aura was drawn from John's position, carrying a terrifying aura, and cracked a long deep scar on the ground, aiming directly at Zephyr. Sensing the sharp sword energy that was about to approach, Zephyr didn't panic at all, instead, he let out a low drink. 6 Styles Finger Pistol. Zephyr's arm glowing with black light quickly shot out countless finger pistols forward, and afterimages appeared frequently. Under the terrifying speed and strength, the sound of sonic boom continued to be heard from the fingertips. Boom! A thunderous sound exploded, which could be clearly heard more than 10 kilometers away. At the position where the sword energy came into contact with the fingertips, a dazzling white light exploded, and it was hard to keep one's eyes open just from the peripheral vision, as if countless white woven lamps were lit together here. On the spot, Zephyr stood still, his calf sunk deep in the mud, his expression indifferent. The legs stuck in the mud did not affect Zephyr's movement in the slightest. He slowly lifted his right leg, and the mud flew all over without any resistance, just like lifting his legs in the air. John's blow seemed gorgeous, but it didn't cause any substantial damage to Zephyr. Looking up to meet John's eyes, Zephyr sneered. Next second, Zephyr moved. The tall figure shot out like a cannonball, and behind it, the ground seemed to be shaking, with both hands clenched into fists, and the wind howling. In a blink, Zephyr's figure appeared in front of John, and he swung his arms fiercely towards John's face, his fists with black light kept enlarging in John's eyes. Spark! John snorted. When the fist was about to hit him, hundreds of sword chi burst out from the western sword, densely packed and powerful, sweeping towards Zephyr madly. At the same time, John's body slammed on the ground. A little bit, burst back. Knowing that he was weak in melee combat, John did not choose to take Zephyr's punch head-on. On the other side, Zephyr felt that hundreds of sword chi were about to cut towards him, so he frowned slightly, so he had to change his strategy, turning from attack to defense, and smashed the black fist towards the sword chi with a whistling sound. Bang, bang, bang. There were constant roaring sounds of impact, and with the white light constantly exploding, the air waves pushed out layer by layer, like white sharp blades, and the trees in the distance were chopped off by the middle. Next moment, in the center of the white light, everything returned to calm. With Zephyr as the center, the rocks on the surface of the ground were blown up, and a large crater of more than 10 meters appeared. As for Zephyr, the clothes on his body became tattered at this time, and there was a burnt smell coming from the corners of the clothes, looking quite embarrassed. But under the tattered clothes, above Zephyr's bare skin, there was no scar. Is this attack tickling? Zephyr patted the dust off his body, and spoke majestically. In the distance, John's complexion sank, and he saw Zephyr, who had received his blow hard with his fist. He was not injured at all, and the western sword in his hand was clenched even tighter. Then how about trying this trick? John's expression froze, and he shouted loudly. The prairie fire. Accompanied by the sound, I saw two huge sword chi carrying a destructive aura, as if ignoring the distance. In the next instant, it flew to Zephyr. At the same time that John was emitting sword energy, Zephyr's breath sank, and the armament hockey on both arms became darker again. It is so dark that even the sun can absorb all of it. Correspondingly, the deterrent and striking power of the two arms is even stronger. Black arm. I saw his eyes bursting with light, his arms seemed to shake the mountains, stir up the sea, and smashed the sword energy with terrifying energy. Boom. The sky-shaking noise exploded, no less than the detonation of a giant bomb. The sound alone made people want to cover their ears. In the middle of the explosion, terrifying waves slashed in all directions like sharp knives, the ground was torn apart by the airflow, within a radius of 100 meters, not a single blade of grass grew, and it was a piece of wasteland. The aftermath of the explosion affected John in the distance, and the use of Liaoyuan had consumed at least half of his energy. But Zephyr is still not killed, and John must now find a way, hoping to use a sneak attack to defeat the enemy. Just as he was thinking about how to create opportunities next, Zephyr, with more bloodstains on his body, has locked John's position. Next moment, he appeared next to John, and with his right fists together, he swung at John with a punch that pierced through the air. John, who realized that Zephyr was approaching, was horrified, and quickly blocked the attack with his sword. Clang! There was a sound like striking iron. However, the next moment, at the moment of the impact, Zephyr's left fist swung, hitting John's chest directly. Boom! John, who had no remaining moves to stop him, spat out a mouthful of blood, and his body was blasted away like a shell fired. Compared to their tragedy, Qinzi's side is much better. Those Marines who raised their muskets stared at Qinzi one by one, but they didn't dare to make a move because they knew who they were facing now, and they dared to kill Qinzi from celestial dragons. Sweat dripped from their foreheads, and the hands holding the guns were trembling faintly. Qinzi just stood there quietly, but the aura on his body made them a little breathless. Bang, bang, bang. Finally, someone couldn't help it anymore. After a person shot, a series of sounds echoed in the air like firecrackers being lit. Next moment, they saw an incredible scene. Because the bullets fired made a clanging sound as if hitting steel, without leaving a single wound on Qinzi's body. Immediately, the Marines were horrified, each one dumbfounded. How to fight this? Even the gun can't break the defense. The other side, looking at their expressions, Qinzi raised his eyebrows, and the blackness on his body slowly faded away. The moment they shot, Qinzi had already covered his whole body with armament hockey. It was too boring to deal with these miscellaneous fish. Qinzi could kill them instantly, but that would be very boring. So I wanted to try to catch bullets with my body. What would be the effect? In order not to overturn, Qinzi specially used armament hockey. The effect was very good. Those bullets had no effect on Qinzi. Just like the iron cloth shirt in the movie in the previous life. Qinzi felt that even without the armament hockey, these bullets would not do much harm to him. Glancing at the Marines present, the corners of Qinzi's mouth rose slightly. Fun time ends here. Next moment, the Conqueror's hockey on him explodes. Buzz. Marine, who was still in a state of shock, suddenly foamed at the mouth one by one, rolled his eyelids up, lost control of the gun in his hand, and fell to the ground, and like him, there was Marine's fallen body. In such an instant, hundreds of Marines fell to the ground one after another. No wonder Conqueror's hockey is the best way to clean trash fish. And there are less than 10 Marines left, and they are all stuck on the ground with muskets, with extremely strenuous expressions on their faces, struggling to support themselves. At this time, a loud explosion suddenly came from John and Zephyr's position. Qinzi followed the sound and looked. I saw a person, like a shot put thrown out, drew a perfect arc in the air, and landed right beside Chin-zi. Taking a closer look, it was John who was hit by Zephyr. At this moment, he was lying on the ground, his hair was disheveled, blood was spitting out of his mouth, his red robe was rotten, and the western sword in his hand was lying aside. He raised his right hand with difficulty, and difficult words came out of his mouth. "Relay. I can't stand it anymore." Hearing this, Chin-zi was stunned. "Stretch out your right hand." Snapped. There was a crisp clap of applause. "I have seen your strength." Chin-zi shook his head. After settling John down, Chin-zi didn't delay any longer, and looked at the place where John was fighting before. Next moment, Chin-zi's figure disappeared directly on the spot, because the speed was too fast for the naked eye to catch the trajectory. In the next instant, in front of Zephyr, Chin-zi has appeared. And the moment he saw Chin-zi, Zephyr was not surprised at all, and folded his hands on his chest. "You rocks pirates aren't that good either. It seems to be seriously exaggerated." After knocking John away, Zephyr waited here. He knew that Chin-zi would definitely come, and the fact was exactly as he thought. "You don't know, there is a huge gap between people." Chin-zi was not in a hurry to act, but also looked at Zephyr and said slowly, "Ha ha ha, it seems that you are very confident in your own strength. I wonder if you can make me use my full strength." Zephyr laughed immediately after hearing Chin-zi's words. He knew that Chin-zi would definitely be stronger than John, but he was also the captain of the Rocks Pirates, so how strong could he be? Now he is more confident than when he came here just now. After all, one of them has been defeated, so will the next one be far behind? "I heard that your armament hockey and skills are great." "That's right, let's have a head-to-head confrontation between real men." Chin-zi smiled, knowing all about Zephyr's strength and areas of expertise. "It seems that you know me very well." Zephyr looked at Chin-zi, knowing his name and also knowing his specialty armament hockey, which surprised him a bit, but immediately felt ridiculous. Knowing that the strongest one is armament hockey, you still want to touch yourself, isn't it courting death? Hearing this, Chin-zi shrugged and didn't communicate much. Next second, Chin-zi's momentum exploded, and he shouted, "Armed color, hardening." The arm was immediately rendered black, and the left foot slammed on the ground. The seemingly weak body was full of explosive power, and it rushed towards Zephyr, and the fists locked on Zephyr's chin and crotch. "Want to attack my two weak spots? It's not that easy." Zephyr's eyes flashed, and he could see Chin-zi's thoughts, but his body did not dodge or dodge, and he still maintained a state of high-speed impact. In a blink, the bodies of the two collided together like cannonballs, setting off layers of invisible air waves. Boom! A loud sound came out, and a figure was knocked out from the center of the sound wave like a cannonball. It was Zephyr. "I'm not attacking your chin and crotch. I told you I'm going to fight head to head." Chin-zi's body had already fallen to the ground at this time, and he spoke slowly. At the moment of the collision just now, Chin-zi's two fists merged together and directly hit Zephyr's fist. Zephyr, who was blocking his chin and belly button with his fists up and down, had no time to react, and was hit by Chin-zi's mountain-like fists on his right fist. Feeling the terrifying force coming from above, Zephyr's body was directly shot out. At this time, on the other side, the Marines who were stunned by Chin-zi's conquerors slowly woke up after hearing a loud noise. Following the sound, they looked into the distance, guessing that Zephyr instructor must be fighting someone at this moment. Several leaders looked at each other, and immediately led the Marines to rush over there quickly. What a coincidence! Just in time to see Zephyr, who was knocked into the air, climbed out of a big pit. What's the situation? How could Zephyr instructor be in the pit? Looks like it was blown away. How is it possible? Armament hockey of Zephyr instructor is the top existence of naval headquarters. Impossible. Zephyr instructor must be careless. Is it Chin-zi? His armament hockey doesn't seem to be weak. Quote. When the Marines saw the Zephyr instructor in their minds crawling out of the pit, they were all shocked. Looking at Chin-zi on the other side, they understood what happened before. Thinking of Chin-zi's armament hockey covering his whole body and blocking bullets, he couldn't help but worry secretly. At this time, Zephyr, who had already climbed out of the pit, shook his arms. The blow was stronger than he imagined, but he was not afraid. Zephyr didn't think it was a problem with his own strength. He was obviously careless just now. Then Chin-Z will not play the cards according to the routine. Next moment, Zephyr's arms became darker and darker, and the black arm had already appeared, and he stepped on his body suddenly, shooting towards Chin-Z's direction. At the same time, the red glow on Chin-Z's arm emerged, and the black-red fist was more conspicuous in the sunlight. With both arms, Zephyr hit Chin-Z's hands directly, and at the same time he kicked forward with his right leg. Chin-Z also reacted. While receiving the move, he also raised his right leg and hit Zephyr's thick leg bone together. Neither of them stagnated this time. Clang, clang, clang. Accompanied by the sound of heavy iron rhythm clashing, the two used their hands and feet together, and in just a few breaths, they had already fought no less than a dozen times. Boom! With a loud noise, the two people who were fighting together finally separated. As this emission, in the process of fighting, Zephyr became more and more frightened, feeling the strange energy from his arm, and there was a dark energy hidden under the huge force on the surface. This made him amazed, but he didn't show any shock on the surface. Fortunately, Naval Headquarters told him this information before he came to deal with Chin-Z. If I hadn't used Black Arm directly just now, I might have suffered a dumb loss. But, whether it's emission or whatever, it's just the way armament hockey is used. At this level, you are not good enough. Zephyr's body sank, and a scorching air flowed from the corner of his mouth, urging all the strength in his body to move towards the palm. Boom! The arms, which were originally extremely thick, swelled again, and at the same time, the fingers were bent, and the palms were closed. A red light flashed across the fingers that were originally covered with armed colors. Finger pistol 10 finger pistol. With a low shout, both feet stomped the ground at the same time. 6 styles shaved. The muscular figure disappeared directly in place. Next moment, Zephyr appeared behind Chin-Z, carrying a terrifying acupressure force, hitting Chin-Z's sides. At this time, Chin-Z, who had already activated observation hockey, knew Zephyr's location and the moves he was using now. 6 styles. Physical skills that exceed the limit of human physical strength are extremely powerful. If you learn them all, even demon fruit power can fight with them. Although the moves are simple and unpretentious, many people can practice them, but most people can't learn one of them. 2 strokes. But Zephyr, as an instructor-level character of a marine soldier, not only knows how, but also his power cannot be underestimated. Coupled with the use of armament hockey's ultimate, even Chin-Z dare not take it too seriously. Give a low drink. Covered all over with armament hockey, Chin-Z's body suddenly became dark. Under the sun, if there were not some red rays of light emerging from the body surface, Chin-Z at this time would be like a light insulator. Next moment, Zephyr's finger pistol had already pricked the skin. Chin-Z turned his body around, and swung his fists violently towards the finger pistol. Clang, clang, clang. At the moment of the confrontation, Chin-Z's fists hit repeatedly like bullets, which were dozens of times more powerful than the bullets from the marine musket. However, as Chin-Z swung his fist faster and faster, Zephyr's finger pistol gradually felt a little bit of effort. Suddenly, Zephyr's arms froze from the blow. Although this is almost non-existent, it is the key among masters, such as physical monsters like Chin-Z and observation hockey. Seize this fleeting opportunity. Chin-Z turned his fists into palms, grabbed Zephyr's arms, and at the same time exerted force with both hands. As if shaking a mountain, he directly swung Zephyr up and threw it out violently. Like throwing a shot put, Zephyr, who had lost his center of gravity, was thrown out by Chin-Z at this moment, and smashed hard to the ground. Boom! A loud sound came from the ground. Immediately, a large amount of dust rose up, filled the fields, and covered the sky. The Marines watching the battle were all stunned. Zephyr Instructor was thrown out by Chin-Z like a shot put. When it hit the ground, the sound came out, as if there was a thunder explosion on the ground. It was deafening. What kind of power does it have to be able to do this? Zephyr Instructor suffered a loss in the battle with Chin-Z. How is this possible? This is the Rocks Pirates, the youngest captain, dare to kill the existence of celestial dragons. Zephyr Instructor should be fine. Quote, quote. The Marines are always paying attention to the situation of the two sides in the battle. When they saw Zephyr Instructor approaching Chin-Z and taking the initiative to attack, they couldn't help but hold their breath and watch with wide eyes. However, after the two fought for a while back, The Zephyr instructor who had snatched Chin-Zi just now was beaten back, and was thrown back, which made them extremely shocked, and at the same time secretly worried about Zephyr. However, when the thick smoke dissipated, I saw Zephyr standing on the ground with a very standard horse gait. Do not. It should be standing in the pit. The clothes that were already broken were even more tattered by the bombing, revealing the high and solid muscles hidden in the body. Under the rendering of armament hockey, it looks like a piece of fine iron. It is one of the 6 formulas, iron body. Zephyr, your size. Participating in a bodybuilding competition should be very interesting. Chin-Zi, who was in the distance, saw Zephyr's muscles and made a joke. But I was secretly surprised in my heart. In the moment he was thrown by himself, he was able to adjust his body balance and use the iron body in the 6 styles. I have to say that this is really admirable. Headquarters 3 Admirals Instructor. Zephyr, who heard Chin-Zi's words, raised his head slowly without saying a word, and there seemed to be bloodshot eyes in his eyes. It seemed easy, but in fact, Chin-Zi's blow just now caused some damage to Zephyr. At this time, Zephyr realized that Chin-Zi was very strong, much stronger than John, the captain of the Rocks Pirates. Looking at his peers in the entire world, among those who rely purely on physical skills and close combat, except for Garp, he doesn't think there is anyone who can compare with himself. Now, there is one more person on his list. Even so, Zephyr is still extremely calm, because as an instructor, he knows that the more he is on the battlefield, the more he must keep himself calm. Only in this way can he exert his greatest strength. As for Chin-Zi, he deserves to use his full strength. Next moment, Zephyr closed his eyes. Paper Arts Valkyrie. Brush. Zephyr's originally tense body, as well as arms that swelled so unnaturally, suddenly collapsed inward, and his whole body became thinner in the blink of an eye. The flesh became tighter, and the hairs on his body stood on end. Hearing, smell, touch, taste, 4 of the 5 senses have increased by more than 10 times at this moment. In the surrounding area, he could clearly feel the sound of Marine's breathing and Chin-Zi's heartbeat. Everything seems to be under control. At the same time, observation hockey activates, and in Zephyr's consciousness, the vision lost due to the closed eyes is immediately materialized. And everything lost its color and became black and white. Extended use of the 6 styles. Paper Arts Valkyrie. Observation hockey. With the blessing of the 2, Zephyr's whole person has entered a wonderful state of emptiness. In his perception, even without eyes, the world becomes extremely clear at this moment. And the passage of time is extremely slow. Should say. It is Zephyr that has become faster, and the outside world seems to be slower. All this happened in an instant. Next moment, Zephyr opened his eyes suddenly and locked onto Chin-Zi. At the same time, both feet stepped on the air, the black armament hockey covered the whole body, and the tight muscles were tense, like an iron body that has been beaten thousands of times. Boom. Disappear. So fast. Chin-Zi, who had been observing Zephyr's situation, found that he had disappeared suddenly in place, and he couldn't catch him. This was the first time Chin-Zi came to this world to fight against others. He couldn't help being surprised how his opponent disappeared from his field of vision for the first time. However, before Chin-Zi could think further, there was a strong wind blowing on the left side of his body, like a blade, making Chin-Zi's body numb. Almost subconsciously, Chin-Zi blocked it with his arm. Suddenly, a huge force came from the arm. Boom. Chin-Zi's body flew upside down and hit a boulder, causing it to be torn apart. Under the huge impact force, the stone under Chin-Zi's body was already turned into powder. Not only the rocks under him collapsed, but also cracks like spider webs appeared on the ground at this time, which shows how powerful this force is. I'll just say it. Zephyr instructor must have been careless before, but now he's really serious. As the advanced combat power of naval headquarters, how can it be defeated so easily? Chin-Zi, although he has a high talent, but when he really meets a strong opponent, he can only bow down. Quote. Seeing Chin-Zi being blown away by Zephyr, the Marines, who were still worried about Zephyr before, immediately changed their views. Zephyr instructor will definitely win at this moment, and he deserves all the hopes these Marines entrust. This is indeed the case at present. I have to say that Zephyr is the most difficult opponent Chin-Zi has ever encountered. Compared with the Golden Lion he played before, although in terms of overall strength, it is not conclusive whether the two are stronger. But as an opponent, the pressure on Zephyr will be much greater. There is no other reason, because Zephyr, like Shinzi, is a melee faction, and in physical combat, both of them punch to the flesh. In terms of strength and physical fitness, Shinzi is stronger than Zephyr, but in actual combat experience and combat skills, Zephyr is ahead of Shinzi. Compared to facing the Golden Lion, Shinzi only needs to focus on dealing with his sword energy, which is not difficult, and once the Golden Lion lets Shinzi get close, he will be defeated immediately with his hips stretched. But in the face of Zephyr, there is not much advantage in being close. This made Shinzi sigh inwardly. Swordsmen and warriors should be treated differently. In the crack, Shinzi, who was covered with armament haki, got up from inside, and patted the dust scattered on his clothes. The muscles on his body trembled, and his whole body was crackling. This was the sound of bones and muscles being squeezed. At this moment, Shinzi's body was tense. He is ready to give it his all. Under the blowing of the strong wind, Shinzi's tattered clothes swayed, and his black hair danced by itself. Looking up, his eyes burst into light. I saw you. Next second, Shinzi stepped on the ground, soared upwards, and hovered in front of Zephyr in an instant. His speed and strength suddenly soared, and his bright red fists were like two meteors hitting the ground at this moment. Terrifying energy swept away, as if it could tear a crack in the air. Zephyr in the state of martial body was aware of the fist before it came, and his senses were extremely clear, feeling the potential energy contained in the fist. Without the slightest hesitation, Zephyr's body burst back tens of meters, and ultimate speed seemed to teleport. The next moment, Shinzi rushed up. Two black figures are constantly fighting in the air, so fast that only the remnants can be seen, like two black lightnings, flashing and dancing in the air. Every time they collide, there will be a violent roar, accompanied by with the sweeping air waves, wantonly ravage the land. If the fight continues like this place will be destroyed. It's horrible. This is simply not a human battle. Stand back, and keep your distance from Zephyr instructor's fighting position. Quote, quote. The watching Marines exclaimed again and again, retreating to a safe area one after another. Watching such a battle up close would be tantamount to courting death. As for the Marine who withdrew, the naked eye could no longer see the situation on the field clearly, so he picked up the binoculars equipped in the army and continued to pay close attention to the battle situation. Boom! Finally, between the two bolts of black lightning, a loud noise erupted, and a figure was smashed straight into the ground, like a meteorite falling, and a huge crater suddenly appeared on the ground. The surrounding seawater, under the influence of this vibration, huge waves were set off and swept towards the island. The waves slammed on the shore with unstoppable power. Pushing horizontally all the way, the seawater surged in like a giant beast that devoured everything, and most of this small half of the island was submerged. Looking at Shinzi again, he was hanging on a boulder at this time. His eyes were lowered, and his eyes were quietly overlooking the earth, overlooking Zephyr who was submerged in seawater in the huge pit. Wow! At this time, there was a sound of water breaking, and Zephyr's figure swept an arc in the air, and landed smoothly on a rock opposite Shinzi. Her purple hair, which was wet by the sea water, shone brightly under the sunlight. The clothes on her body were completely torn, and her whole body was covered with black armament haki, but there were many wounds all over her body. The bleeding didn't stop. This power! Zephyr sighed inwardly as he felt the terrifying blow from Shinzi at the end. At this time, he felt as if his bones were about to fall apart, and his martial state had disappeared. His mind was dizzy, his consciousness gradually became heavy, his breath became weaker and weaker, and even armament haki was quite dimmed. It seems that I can't hold it anymore. But in the next second, his eyes lit up sharply, and the original weak breath suddenly recovered, even thicker, and the light gray armament haki instantly turned dark black. And not only that, puff! With a soft sound, majestic energy gushes out, forming a thick black air wave on the body surface full of wounds. From a distance, Zephyr at this time seems to be hiding under the diffuse black mist. What? Seeing this scene, Shinzi couldn't help but let out a doubt. Next moment, a steady, waveless, calm and meticulous voice sounded slowly. 6 styles 6 king spear. Boom! Zephyr disappeared in an instant, and at his original position, he was lower than the surrounding terrain at this time, and suddenly, the seawater poured in. Shinzi turned his head immediately. In front of him, Zephyr was hovering in the sky parallel to himself. Frowning, Shinzi didn't have much surprise on his face. He is Zephyr after all. At this time, his speed is not as fast as before in the martial state, but he can feel that his strength is several times stronger. Shinzi carefully looked at Zephyr, who was nearly 100 meters away, and saw that his upper body was almost exposed, with large and small wounds, and blood was flowing, but the armament haki covering his body was black and seeping. With the beating of the heart, the thick chest swelled high and contracted deeply, and the feet stepped on the air from time to time. This is the moonwalk of the 6 forms. Coming. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.